We've done it again. They can't stop us. How you guys doing today? Hope you're doing well. You're okay, buddy. You're okay. My little pug immediately, I stood up and he just like, oh! He's immediately looking for, what's going on? Where's the party? That's Milo for you. Always looking for the party. I'm pulling out my guitar, and I feel like singing something. I just don't know what to sing. You know what? I asked that question, and I gotta tell you, Denver Country Roads. Gotta love this song, man. What a treasure. You know how some people come into the world, and they're just a gift to us. That's all they are, right? Steve Irwin is like this to me. Steve Irwin is just a gift, a treasure who has befallen us, who has come onto us, and left behind two wonderful children that seem to be following in his footsteps. John Denver is exactly the same, and I think I'm going to kick this week off. Almost heaven, West Virginia, Blue Ridge Mountains, Shenandoah River. Life is old there, older than the trees, younger than the mountains, blowing like a breeze. Country road, take me home to the place I belong, West Virginia, Mountain Mama, take me home, country roads. All my memories gather round her, miner's lady, stranger to blue water. Dark and dusty, painted on the sky, misty taste of moonshine, teardrop in my eye. Country road, take me home to the place I belong, West Virginia, Mountain Mama, take me home, country road. I hear a voice in the morning, how she calls to me. The radio reminds me of a home far away. And driving down the road, I get a feeling that I should have been home yesterday. Country road, take me home to the place I belong, West Virginia, Mountain Mama, take me home, country roads, take me home, country road, take me home, down country roads. Wow, and right in the middle of all of that, Mystic, how you doing, bud? I mean, what a silly question to ask, honestly. Trying to calm myself. My mother is diagnosed with cancer. I don't know how to handle that news. I'm panicking. I suspect you are, friend. I suspect you are. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Like this is the grounding moments, the moments that bring us down to the earth and remind us that it's not theory and high-minded thinking and all of this. Like these are our lives, goddammit. These are our lives. I came back on YouTube just to distract myself, cheer myself up. Well, stick around, bud. We're gonna go through the day's news. All of our solidarity towards you, friend. All of it we have. I hope you're well. I know you're living in America, so I hope you're well insured. I hope that your mom gets the best care possible in the world. And just know, man, like you got people here who genuinely do care about the outcome of that result. Like we're not gonna. I feel like one of the things I'm hoping to accomplish here, and I know it's an uphill stream, but I don't. I want this chat to be a place of solidarity and not just like a fucking goofy stream of consciousness that I always see elsewhere, and that I'm hoping to actually build a real community here. And so hopefully you can find a little bit of comfort from us. And yeah, man, tough times, dark days. Tough times, dark days. Oy. Okay, good luck. Have you seen what Elon Musk tweeted at Bernie Sanders recently? What a ridiculous man! Like what a child this Elon Musk guy is, right? Like what a fucking cartoon character. For those of you who don't know, I do have that tweet somewhere, but I'd have to sift about for it. But it is literally like Bernie Sanders just says something Bernie Sanders-ish, like rich people should pay more taxes, that kind of thing. And then Elon Musk tweets back saying, "Oh, I forgot that you were even alive." Or like, "I forgot that you're still alive." That kind of thing, right? Which just reveals how childish he is, right? Like, you're tweeting at like an elected senator, "Oh, you're so old that you should be dead," literally while he's saying, "Hey, maybe if rich people paid their taxes, we could actually afford things like healthcare for all," and that kind of thing. And it's just revealing more and more that like the people who simp for Elon Musk are kind of despicable people, honestly. Like that. Can you imagine being on the other side of this, cheering Elon Musk on while he like denigrates an elderly senator? And one commenter said, and I think it's absolutely true, that when Elon Musk says that of Bernie Sanders, he says that of all of us, right? That's what he's saying to all of us, that we he still he doesn't think that we're alive, right? He forgets that we're still alive, right? Yeah, whether you support Senator Sanders or not, it was uncalled for. It's childish. It really shows you, like I've been saying for years now, that Elon Musk just has significant daddy issues, that he hasn't yet grown up, right? He literally has spent his entire life beneath the shadow of his father, who likely didn't show him the love or compassion or have an emotional connection to Elon, as a slaver would not have necessarily. And Elon's entire life has just been trying to prove to his daddy that he's good, right? Like, I find it extremely odd that Elon Musk feels the need to try to convince people that he's this super genius, right? It's an extremely odd thing to do. And he clearly has a chip on his shoulder. Where, like if you had $1 billion, why would you spend a penny of it trying to convince anybody of anything? That you're a smart person or any of this? Trying to convince people that he's like a genius or any of this, right? When he's obviously not, right? He's just a guy with a lot of money buying patents and like buying other people's work, right? Very much in the same vein as like a Thomas Edison, right? And the questions that and like once you have this kind of money, like it's not so that you can get more, like the money is almost just like a dick measuring contest at this point. So it's just like you can't and so I literally think everything he does is just about proving to himself that his daddy does love him. I think that's really his central motivation. It's very much like Batman, right? Batman's parents were killed by a criminal, and so he spends his entire life working to avenge their deaths in this never-ending pursuit for which there is no goal, or endpoint, rather. And I think it's the same with Elon, that he's just on this never-ending quest. And because his father was a slaver who like owned slaves, the depths of his depravity and his inability to have an emotional core or center is endless. There's no bottom to that. And so Elon's trying to fill this bottomless pit up with stuff and events and prove that he is worthy of the love of this literal slaver. So it's a fascinating story. Like, don't get me wrong, I think we should make a movie about it. But like, to simp for him, to see people being like I watched a debate recently between a communist professor, an economist, and a pro-capitalist YouTuber with like 3 million followers, and the guy literally was like, "Who do you think was more valuable, Elon Musk or Joseph Stalin?" And I literally am like, "Fuck, dude! Like, you're simping hard for Elon. Like, you're living in a delusional dream world if you think that Elon Musk is contributing even to any of this. Like, it's very, very crazy." If I heard you currently about what Elon said to Sanders, that kind of shows Elon's opinion on age-based eugenics. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, like what? The elderly can't participate? The elderly aren't allowed to have opinions, right? Like, and it's such a low blow cheap shot, right? Literally just like, you're old. That's why I don't really like when people start commenting that way about Biden, even. Like, yeah, Biden has a declining mental capacity. Biden fell asleep at COP26. Like, yeah, Biden's an old dude, right? He's old. I just find it such a cheap shot. It's such a low blow, because we're all gonna get there. Like, you're looking at the end of what it is, right? And to turn around and degenerate it just for the sake of its existence, I think it's disrespectful to the degree where I wouldn't even do it to my worst enemies. Like, I think that what time does to us and age is something that when you make fun of elderly people for being elderly, you're literally making fun of creation itself. You're literally making fun of the creative force that sustains us and maintains us and decides that this is the path for each and every one of us. And I just don't find that tenable. I find it quite, disrespectful is not even the word. Like, it's beyond disrespectful. It puts into question most of your opinions, I think. Like, if you're walking around shitting on old people because they're old, like, I don't think I need to take many of your opinions very seriously. Like, there's a detachment that's required to do that. Yeah, I assumed, Major. How you guys are, you know what? I didn't even have the chance to say how you guys are all doing. Mocked, all of you're all doing great. And you know what? How you guys all doing? I hope you all had a great weekend. And we got some people coming in here pissed off. How you doing, bud? You're coming in with a 10 and a 7. That's for the number draw, right? We got to do the number draw. I am going to get my act together and associate these numbers to some of my songs so that when they come up, I'll play the tune afterwards. Get some of that David Lynchian energy.
Here we go for today's number.
Here we go, guys. We got a 10, we got a 7.
November 15.
What am I going for?
2021.
I'm number 1. I'm number 1. We got an 8, we got a 5.
Each
Here we go,
ball
guys.
has a number.
We got a good spread.
Numbers 1 through 10.
Numbers 1 through 10. Here we go. The powerful David Lynch.
Swirl the numbers.
Swirl the numbers. I love it.
Pick a number.
Cancincos with a 9.
Today's number is
8. So Ezio, Ezio Mentore. I love it. You win today, buddy. You got the David Lynchian energy with you, right? May that carry you into your creative pursuits. May the beautiful energy of David Lynch come into your life and express itself with the full-throated nature of the universe. And so on and so forth. Ding, 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 ding. I love this, man. I love the number draw. I do. It's there's a little part of me like that's kind of saying, come on, John, this is a silly way to do things. But you know what? The world is silly. And the fact that David Lynch is even doing this is absurd. I say we participate. Okay. Someone at my mom's workplace who has COVID and was on a ventilator for more than a week up until earlier today joined a Zoom meeting from the ICU because her boss told her she needed to start working remotely as soon as she was off the ventilator. Capitalism is a death cult. I'm going to be straight up with you guys. Anytime anybody uses this phrase, capitalism is a death cult, you're on my show. That's what's going to happen. Bibbidi bobbidi boo. What do I want to start with here? I want to start with just some shout outs, I think. Just a couple of things to think about, or a couple of people to be aware of. I stumbled across this fellow, the Critical Drinker, right? I haven't really been paying much attention to movie critics recently, and not really movies in general, because I find them to all be shallow and shockingly bad, right? Most of what's being produced these days is shockingly horrible. And this guy here, the Critical Drinker, within this like kind of goofy framework and all this kind of stuff, but his central thesis on films is that they should be for adults, and they should be mature, and they should be thoughtful, and they should actually have a good one, Mystic. Good luck on your journey, friend. Good luck, and send your love to your mom for real. Oy. And but so I recommend everybody go find this guy, the Critical Drinker. The thing I like about his movie criticisms is that he just insists and demands that movies return to being adult, thoughtful, and have expressions and meanings, right, and purpose. His critique of The Last Jedi, which he calls the assassination of Luke Skywalker, and really captures like what these film studios are doing with this nostalgia porn, and how they're completely screwing us up. Oh, Major, I missed this. I am talking about movies. My mom has lung cancer surgery too. Nervous about that? Oh man, yeah. Yeah, guys. Holy cow. And this is making me think about my mom's own health struggles and my mom's own stuff and how, oy vey. And the kind of, there comes a point in everyone's life. There does come a point in everyone's life where we know that we stand alone. That when you're a child, you have this sort of mistaken idea that these parents are eternal, that they're these grand mythical figures in a way, that they're powerful and strong and incapable of a flaw. And then the hallmark of what makes a person an adult is the recognition that their parents are simply people, that they're not the mythical figures that you once saw them as, and that all of your angst and anger towards them, which is emblematic of growing up, is unwarranted, because they were never the thing that you thought that they were. They always were just these fragile humans trying their best. And you begin to see yourself reflected in them. You begin to see how you and they are intertwined. And then the true mark of maturity, not only just being an adult, but also the true mark of maturity, is recognizing and realizing that one day they will be gone. And there's nothing you can do to prevent that outcome. That one day they will be gone. Whether it's sooner or later, you know that you will exist in the world without them. And that you will stand alone. And that their journey will one day be your journey. And eventually you won't be able to look forward. You will only be able to look back. And that you will be the old man looking on the youth who are simply trying to find their own way. Man, what a day to start the week. What a way to start the week. Yeah, my father is almost 70. He'll be 70 this year. So, my heart goes out to you, Major and Mystic, both of you. These are troubling events and troubling times, and all we can do is stand with one another in solidarity and acceptance. Because this is the way of our lives. This is the way of our lives. This is, in truth, the best case scenario for us. That is, in truth, the best case scenario for us. It is our fate. And so the best that we can do is treasure the times that we have and work towards being well remembered. Wow. John, you're the greatest man I've ever come across on the internet. That's very kind of you. I think you should play Wish My... I was thinking about it. You know what? I think you're right. Oh. Let's pull it up just so that I have something to look at. I think you're right. Oh, come along. I need to get myself better organized. There we go. So this one goes out, Major. This one goes out to you and to you, Mystic. These times they are uncertain, of that there is no doubt, and nobody can tell me quite what it's all about. The heartbreak and the loneliness, the chaos and the fear will make even the strongest cry, I wish my ma was here. A young man on a battlefield fights for a rich man's gold. The bullet cracks into his spine, he knows he won't grow old. And as the tears come streaming down, and once his mind goes clear, the war was fought for nothing, he cries, I wish my ma was here. A lively story well in hand, a joke to soothe your soul. And when it came to arguing, she'd forgive and let it go. And when I cried, she held me, told me it's okay, my dear. And as we face these darkened days, I wish my ma was here. And as we march into the streets, as all the righteous do, we'll raise our voices to the skies. They cannot stop the truth. And as we tear their structures down, we'll raise a victory cheer. We made the world a better place, and I wish my mom was here. Yeah, we made the world a better place, and I wish my mom was here. Man, I didn't think I'd be crying today. Boy, did I not think this was going to be going on today, man. Oh. Oh. Wow. Wow. I don't know if this is good YouTube content or not. I don't know if this is good YouTube content or not, but here it is. Oh, okay. What an absurd place we live in. What an absurd world this is. What an absurd existence. A strange place that we all just kind of shrug and accept. Oh yes. Thank you so much for the love, guys. Thank you so much. My heart to you. My heart to you. My heart to all of you. Oh my goodness. What a powerful way to begin the week. What a powerful way to begin the week. Holy cow. Because it puts our feet on the ground and it reminds us what we're doing here. That I want to make the world a better place for the people who are yet to even be born. Just as I feel my parents have worked to make this world a better place. And it's a consistent passing of the baton, a consistent and constant passing of the baton from one generation to the next, to the next, to the next. And I refuse to go down silently. That's what it comes down to. I refuse to go down silently. Ugh. Okay. Wow. So, find the Critical Drinker, listen to his stuff. He's got an excellent perspective. And also, shout out to this guy. This guy is nuts. Like, this guy's nuts, what he did. This is a 3-hour-long video that is essentially a deep dive, breaking open of the internet figure Tim Pool. Literally, this guy has gone back to the very early days of Tim Pool's career, found footage, literally watched. He has to have watched literally everything Tim Pool has produced. Like, literally everything. In order to do what he has done, in order to do this deep dive. His name is Full Slack. He only has 64 subscribers. If this is the content that he is going to be producing, he absolutely needs more subscribers than this. I don't know how desperate you are to do a deep dive into Tim Pool, but my position is that if you are interested in a deep dive into Tim Pool, this is probably the best thing you're going to see, that you're going to find. I said to him straight up, I'm glad that you took this bullet and not me. And his response was, yeah, I took that bullet and caught it in my teeth. So, all our energy towards Full Slack, all our support. Big recommend. Like, if you want to put that on and like listen to it in the background and actually go deep into Tim Pool, because like Tim Pool's a fraud, right? Like there's no better word than to describe him. He literally just follows money and says what he thinks will get him the most amount of followers. Like, that's it. He doesn't actually have moral positions. He doesn't actually care. And I've always known that, but I've never wanted to like spend a lot of time to do it. This guy spent months doing this. This is the end of like a months long project for sure. And but now somebody's done it, and so here it is, and I'm showing it to you. Well, I'm not showing it to you, but I'm showing you of its existence. Because, like, boy howdy. Like, he goes into, like, some Chomsky stuff, right? As you can see, like, I'm just mousing over. You can see, like, how much content this has. This isn't just a guy standing there lecturing you. Like, it's literally, like, let's just pick a random...
For the grind bar, where you can, like, you know, we'll mix a little Red Bull and Gatorade with some coconut water, shake it up, and pour it over some rocks. And
I'm very impressed.
It'll be a funny
very
bit.
Impressed.
Music.
Now, boy, and what's so funny is like his commentary really shows you that, like, why is he doing it? You know, why is he doing it? He doesn't even quite understand why he did it. He wanted to do like a 2-minute long video, and it ended up being 3 hours. And I'm just like, yeah, I've been there where your consciousness is just like, nah, you got to keep going. You just got to keep going. And you're like pulling all-nighters for no reason. You're just like, I've got to do it. I've got to do it. Anyway, big shout out to this guy. Let's keep, you know what? I wanted to read this one out loud, and it seems like this is a good one to do now. The disabled are choosing to die because they can't afford to live. This is written by Madeline, which is her pen name. It's published in iPolitics. The inadequate money for care for people on provincial disability assistance is part of a larger societal bias that treats illness as a moral failing. Madeline, a trained performer, is a 53-year-old Vancouverite who's been battling post-viral syndrome for 40 years. When she could no longer work, she applied her need for purpose to her passion for community building. I am dying, and my death is completely preventable. My deterioration has 2 causes. The first is the poverty. The lack of care and financial support for someone like me on disability assistance. The second is the abdication of care. As I battle a 40-year war with a post-viral syndrome, the treatments for which my provincial government refuses to pay. My name is Madeline. Well, that's the pseudonym I've had to use. My medical team believes that because of the fragility of my health, the force of public pressure would kill me all on its own. When I say that my death is avoidable, what I mean is that when I exhaust the last of my money next month, I'll have to stop the oral and intravenous medications I've been using to bolster my faltering health, because British Columbia's medical services plan doesn't cover my life-saving treatments. At that point, I won't be able to move, speak, or eat as I lie trapped in a bed in horrific pain. I've started the medical assistance in dying process, which is now legal in Canada, not because I want to die, but because I'll have to choose between a quick death and a slow, torturous death in a care home, separated from my community, my friends, and my volunteering, which is my purpose. I've chosen the quick death, if you can call it a choice. Post-viral syndrome is better known now because COVID-19 long haulers suffer from it. But it's existed as long as humans and viruses have existed. There's no name for the exhaustion and pain I experience as a result. Tired doesn't begin to encompass it. The word agony has lost all meaning for me. Poverty magnifies the disability. The inadequate money and care for people on provincial disability assistance is part of a larger societal bias that treats illness as a moral failing. In BC, such people receive about $1,000 per month, less than what a healthy person earning minimum wage makes in a 40-hour week. This means we have no chance of managing our illness. From the minute I went on disability assistance, I was treated like a criminal. Over the decades, I've been subjected to compounding microaggressions. I've been told I'd get better if I tried harder, and I must have done something wrong to deserve this. The deprivation of people on disability assistance is a human rights atrocity, but it's also fiscally illogical. It's always catastrophically more expensive to allow a person to deteriorate. And if you look at the larger bureaucratic expense of micromanaging and refusing support, money isn't really the issue here. Who are we as Canadians? Because of our approach to disability support, it is neither economically nor medically logical. Then we're deliberately torturing and punishing people with disabilities for no other reason than we can. And deep down, we somehow think they deserve it. My real name means strong rebel warrior in a sea of sorrow. Little did anyone know when I was named how apt that would become. My friends organized a GoFundMe campaign, but the last of the money runs out on December 1st. When not only will I be $40,000 in debt for medical expenses, I'll be facing death itself. To be a heartbeat away from death induces a terror that has me crawling out of my skin again. And while I'm incredibly grateful for the support, I shouldn't have to beg for my life on the internet. My friends and I have also created a podcast, I Am Madeline, in the hopes of helping others understand what so many Canadians with disabilities endure. My experience is one of many. Now I'm asking for your help. I'm asking you to speak up, write a letter, make a phone call, tweet something at the government in places where you live. If you, my fellow Canadian citizens, don't insist on improvement, so that people like me at least have a chance at a decent quality of life, I don't see how this can possibly change. I hear about new laws regarding accessibility for people with disabilities, but the thing I need access to, first and foremost, is an adequate quality of life. And what I ultimately need is the ability to remain alive. This is something that I was thinking about when I saw this debate. No, that's not the one. No. There it is. This debate here, Valuetainment, right, is a fellow who has many different people. He had Richard Wolff on his show. He himself is a capitalist, but he brings on many different voices, for which I think is respectable, and allows them to have their say in their piece. He's not interested in just overriding them or ramrodding them. But within this, he continuously asks socialists and communists, what matters more, the freedom to pursue your purpose or living in a safe environment? That the capitalists have this false duality in their mindset, that if we created a world where everyone would have their base needs taken care of, that somehow this would prevent people from pursuing their passion or pursuing their meaning or pursuing their purpose and becoming valuable to society. And it's this incoherent duality that has infected the mind of this guy has 3 million subscribers. And when he says these questions, capitalists go, that's right. Yeah. Well, if we just had the government take care of everybody, then no one would need to pursue their passion or any of this. And divorced completely from this mindset, it is the reality that if you are fighting for your survival, that is your meaning. You can't do anything other than struggle and fight for your survival while you are fighting for your survival. And it is only until the struggle for survival is ameliorated that one can even begin to pursue anything outside of that. And so this odd dynamic, this odd question that is continuously asked by capitalists reveals a disconnect, that they have disconnected from what is real in the world around them, that they don't even consider what poverty or homelessness or any of these attributes actually do to a person. And they assume the absolute worst of the people who are inflicted with the worst outcomes of the system they live within. And it's getting clearer to me that this detachment, this inability to live in reality, is the central core of why the capitalist system fails. That capitalism generates a ruling class that is incapable of understanding the lived experiences of the mass of the people they rule over. By default, that's its intention. That's how it's structured to be. And it manifests itself in complete absurdism. Men like Elon Musk are supposed to be simped for, and we're supposed to completely ignore the plight of people like Madeline. And my deep concern about her story is that this is how the wealthy want this to be structured. That she points out that it is fiscally irresponsible or fiscally illogical to do it this way. It costs more to have a person deteriorate like this. And they're fine with that. They want to pay more. And that the strategy of the ruling class now is to make people like Madeline live in such unlivable circumstances that choosing the path of suicide, medically assisted suicide, is their only option. That's my deep, dark Black Mirror kind of concern. And it looks as though that's how things are going. That instead of paying to give these people a decent quality of life, we are trying to show them the door as soon as possible. And I feel like Madeline's story is exactly indicative of this. Full Slack is on YouTube. You bet he is, Nova Scotia. With a 3-hour video about Tim Pool, no less. Oy vey. What a dark one we're having today. It feels personal today. That's what it is. You know? That's what it is. It feels personal today. It doesn't feel like I'm living in the abstract. It doesn't feel like I'm living in the theoretical. These events don't feel like they're happening somewhere else. They feel like they're happening to me. Or to people who I know. So that's what's going on today. This feels very personal. Yeah, but Elon will help him. He just needs his time. Yeah, millions of people like Madeline are going to die if they don't get relief now. Some investment years from now won't help. Yeah. And Elon Musk doesn't care. He doesn't care. Yeah, that's it. Full Slack. You got it. I can, no. Let's get rid of that one. Did I close it? I closed it, didn't I? What a dingleberry. Yeah, it's just Full Slack. What a dingleberry. Closing videos. Maybe I can just bring it up quickly. Yeah, there we go.
Day to be alive. We are witnessing in real time the fall.
Boink. And boink. We did it. We did it. Yeah. Just totally nuts. Totally nuts that this guy actually did this. So, a cop slapped a handcuffed man dying of a drug overdose. Called him a bitch. Shoved a baton in his mouth. That cop got suspended 6 days. But the cop who revealed the cruelty was expelled from the cop union. Now faces 20 years prison for whistleblowing. ACAB. ACAB. All cops are bastards. Like, that's the structure. And we're going to give these guys robots. We're going to go ahead and give these guys robots. Let's get on that, right? Can't wait until those types of people have like a little robot dog walking around with them. Residential school records once held in Canada, now in Rome, researchers say. Captain Canuck, good to see you, bud. Good to see you, bud. And researchers in Ottawa have uncovered new evidence to suggest some archival records relating to residential schools in Canada are now only available in Rome, prompting renewed calls for the Vatican to release historic documents that could help piece together what happened to the Indigenous children who were forced to attend the 48 residential schools once run by the Oblates of Mary Immaculate. The big question for me in regards to this, and the reason why it's being suppressed, and everything that follows is speculation, okay, guys? So I don't have like a document to show you, but I suspect, because what we have is we have a residential school system being run by the Catholic Church that was obviously a disaster, right? It was obviously like the people there were dying. They were riddled with disease, starving to death. For fuck's sakes, there's mass graves, right? Like, that's a catastrophe, no matter how you cut it. And then we have a moment where the residential school systems are shut down, but the project continues, right? That the children that are in... So the project essentially becomes secularized, right? So instead of the schools being run by religious organizations, instead now they're being run by the state. And the complaint of the First Nations people and the Indigenous population is exactly this, that the project was never ended, that it just transitioned into the power of the state through child and family services and the welfare system, right? And we have, I actually have a story here that was dropped on my lap. I have a source on Friday. A group of First Nations people, Indigenous people, stormed Native Child and Family Services. They were inside of Child and Family Services, and this is directly beside the Toronto Police, the primary, like I'm forgetting the name of it, but like the Toronto Police Chief System, like the central headquarters for the police. They confirmed that this occurred on Twitter, 6 p.m. And it was because of exactly the reasons we're talking about. That the First Nations people are calling this a continued genocide. That, sure, maybe it's no longer being done through the churches. Maybe it's no longer being, maybe there are no longer mass graves. But the project of eliminating the culture of the First Nations people is still ongoing in through this process, right? And so the question becomes, what is the accuracy of this statement? Does the documentation support this assertion coming from the First Nations people? And right now, we have the leader of the country is the son of the former prime minister who oversaw this transition, right? And so now I'm being told that there's a ton of documents that are in the hands of the Vatican, that are in Rome. And my central concern from discovering what occurred is, what was Pierre Elliott Trudeau's intention? Did he understand that this project has an illegitimacy to it? Was he actually attempting to help? Was he actually attempting to end the project of genocide? Are there documents where Pierre Elliott Trudeau is saying, this is a horrible relic of our past that needs to be eliminated in the process of reconciliation? Or was he saying, the churches have botched this up, the state can do a better job of eradicating First Nations culture? Right? That to me is the linchpin for Pierre Elliott Trudeau and the Liberals on this particular issue. And it's timely that right at this moment, when we are having this heightened viewpoint of truth and reconciliation, that the son of the former prime minister is very obviously trying to cover for his father. It's very clear to me that that's what he's attempting to do, and you can't really be mad at him for that, right? That you would do the same. Right? If your father got into a pickle or a pinch or had some documents, right? It's likely that you wouldn't willingly just throw them out into the public. So there's nothing necessarily dishonorable about what Justin Trudeau is doing. But if we want to actually know what happened, if we want to actually have a genuine conversation about the Liberals' role in this, if we want to actually embark on a path of truth and reconciliation, we cannot do it with Justin Trudeau at the helm, because he will never, ever, ever do anything to tarnish his own father's legacy, which I think is understandable at the base of it. Like, do we believe that Justin Trudeau is going to actually lean on the Vatican? Do we believe that he's actually going to request the Vatican release these documents? Do we actually believe any of that? I don't. The Deschelles archives were absolutely the repository of records for all of the Western missions, for the Northern missions, and the Eastern missions. Until 2014, McDougall and her fellow historians conducted research at the archives into early Oblate missions, including uncovering residential school information. That year, however, the Oblate's Ottawa property was sold and the archives were moved. So this happened as early as 2014, or recently as 2014. The Oblates told CBC most of their records were sent to their archive facility on the Oblates campus in Quebec. But McDougall and other historians both told CBC that recently they were verifying footnotes in their academic research. They were told by Oblate archives that at least one series of significant records, previously located in Ottawa, now live in Rome. They were told there are not even transcripts in Canada. Right? This has a real like national treasure sort of vibe about it, doesn't it? Like it feels like someone's trying to hide something, doesn't it? Like why move these archives? Why move these documents all the way across the ocean to Rome? What is it that they are seeking to protect? This is an event that occurred in Canada. Canada has its own archival process, right? With its own rules and its own way of operating, and they're allowing Canadian documents from the residential school system to be taken away to the institution that they are actively closing schools down for. Seems sus. Seems sus. Very suspicious. The other historian, whom CBC has agreed not to name for fear of reprimand, calls the Deschelles archives a treasure trove of material concerning schools that were run by the Oblates for decades. But he fears the archive isn't providing the full story as to why the records are no longer in Canada. So, this is an unfolding story. 4 academics who had previously done research at the Oblates Deschelles archive in Ottawa told CBC that some material was found in a large dumpster outside the old seminary around the time of the move in 2014. They said they were told by the Oblates that only old unwanted books, such as duplicate copies of Indigenous dictionaries, had been thrown in the trash. When the researchers tried to recover the material, they found the papers had already been collected by recycling trucks. I don't know what was destroyed at this point, or what was transferred out of the country, or what is simply closed to us. Because what we've seen over the years is that as researchers have gone into the archives, and not even necessarily looking for residential school stories, they have found references to schools and to children and to incidences in those places, and those records became closed, said McDougall. Over time, the OMI have gained greater understanding of the importance of fulsome and transparent access to all information related to all aspects of administration of the school. Harry, how you doing, bud? P.E. Trudeau publicly declared his support of extinguishing Indigenous rights and treaties through his Just Society rhetoric, as well as the Liberal government-funded white papers. Yes, that is all very accurate. That is all very accurate. So, at this stage, it's about what is the depths? To what depth does this story go? What? We're really looking for the smoking gun. And if the smoking gun exists in this narrative, it exists within these archives. And the fact that these archives are being moved, that they're being destroyed, is very suspicious indeed. Very suspicious indeed. Anyhow. So this is going to be unfolding. This is going to be continuing on. Yeah. But McDougall doesn't understand the fixation on an apology from the Pope when what is really needed is better access to historical information. If we don't have the records, we can't tell anything about actual truth. Reconciliation can never happen if we don't have access to the full corpus body of records, and no apology will mean anything. Yeah. That's completely my perspective of these like apology this apology trolling is what I call it. That like they're hoping the Vatican will apologize, then a bunch of people are like, oh, he apologized, we just move forward, right? But that doesn't actually get into the truth and reconciliation. Christopher Edwards, how you doing, bud? Don't think I've ever seen you here before. Hopefully you're here to participate. Oh, man, always good to see a new face. Always good to see a new face. All right, let's move on from here. Yep. Nurses take aim at Ford and Nathan Phillips protest, calling wage cap bill a slap in the face. Yeah. I think that once this protest, I don't even need to go too deep into this. Like literally, the nurses had their wages capped in the middle of a pandemic, with inflation going through the roof, all this kind of stuff. If anyone has been working their asses off in the midst of this pandemic, it's been your nurses, without a doubt, without a doubt. And the idea that the government is capping them while simultaneously giving $27 million to rich people so they can go to Bed Bath and Beyond and stupid bed and breakfasts across Ontario, it is a slap in the face. Once this pandemic is over, I suspect that a lot of these nurses are going to get involved politically, and we should let them. We should vote for them. Because if anybody is going to attempt to actually ameliorate this absurdist situation, it's going to be the frontline people in the midst of the crisis. I'm a moderator for a stream called Cortex Zero. Oh, I know where this is going. A viewer of his stream has repeatedly said that there's a troll that has been constantly harassing you, just like Cortex Zero has been. Well, last stream we found out the identity of this troll. Interesting. I think that I have the spamming and the trolling forced me to do like a subscriber only comment thing, and then I also put slow mode on the chat, and that seems to have ameliorated it. That troll doesn't seem to come around anymore because he's been rendered completely ineffective. How did you find the identity of the troll? I'm curious to know how this, because this is a story that's been somewhat plaguing our chat for a few weeks now, maybe a little longer. I'll be curious to know where this story goes. Yes. Every time I think I've finally become too jaded to be shocked by the criminal legal system in America, I discover some fresh hell. The 6-year-old dangled his legs above the floor as he sat at the table with his defense attorney before a North Carolina judge. He was accused of picking a tulip from a yard at his bus stop, his attorney, Julie Boyer, said, and he was on trial in juvenile court for injury to real property. The boy's attention span was too short to follow the proceedings, Boyer said, so she handed him crayons and a coloring book. It's news to me. Would be good if we have a positive ID. I mean, the guy has to be a Nazi, right? Like, he can't be anything but. He seems very dedicated to the craft of trolling, and I don't know what other type of person would be. Troll is an indication Canadian comedy is taking off to unstoppable level. Troll is an indication. Yes, that's my position as well, Kiri. Thank you so much for that. That's what good positive energy and a good positive spin on that. That's sort of my position as well. Like, and I feel like it's self-defeating. Like, if you're getting trolled, like, that means that people are threatened of you. That's what it means. Right? And all it does is encourage you to continue forward. And it also helps the algorithm, right? Like, a person coming in and like spamming the chat and like causing a disturbance draws the attention of the algorithm and drives people towards you. He asked to join our Discord, and an admin went through his message history, and he found out that last year he made a confession to trolling, but he had a different name. Yeah, of course. It's pretty clear to me that he spends a lot of time making a bunch of different like, he's got to have at least 20 different accounts. He's got to have at least 20 different accounts from what I experienced and what I was dealing with. So it's like, but once I said that it was a subscriber only chat and I just put a 5-minute hold on it, so you had to subscribe, wait 5 minutes, and then you could post. That seems to have been enough to chase this guy away, because you think like every single time he's got to like subscribe, wait the 5 minutes, start spamming the chat. But now I've got a slow mode on the chat, and so he can only really get 1 or 2 messages up. before he's already banned, and then he's got to subscribe, wait the 5 minutes again, right? Like, it really has slowed him down, and so he can't be as disruptive as he wants to be, and so I think he's just moved on. I just think he's moved on. Like, if he shows up again, TRX, that's the guy. TRX. He completely outed himself on this channel. So this guy TRX would show up, and TRX himself would be kind of innocuous, but would kind of be spamming the chat a little bit, but with like pro-communist sort of stuff, even though it's pretty clear he doesn't know anything about communism. But that's fine. But whenever he would show up, the spammers would show up. And so I immediately knew that it was him. And then he outed himself when I banned TRX finally, because I suspected it was him. It was always the same. He would show up, and then the bots would show up. And so I banned TRX, and then immediately he shows up with a TRX backup. And I'm just like, you're a fucking troll, dude. Like, if you have a backup ready to go that you can just like pop into and hop in, you're a troll, for sure. And so he completely outs himself. Yeah, he's talked a lot about communism, a lot on Cortex's stream positively. I just think he's doing this for attention, but he seems really passionate about communism. I don't really get it. I mean, last stream was actually crazy. No, it's because you got to remember, trolls are very stupid, right? Like, think about how stupid this is. Like, the whole thing is as stupid as it gets. And so he's coming, like, he's just trying to convince you that he's not the spammer. Right? Oh no, I love communism. I love this guy. Oh, I'm so good. I'm not spamming your chat. I'm not spamming your chat. I'm not spamming your chat. It's me. I'm just the lovable, likable TRX. It's just I'm just such a nice, harmless little saint of a person. It's yeah. But he's so dumb that he doesn't realize that we see through it. Right? So, no, I just say ban him. Just get rid of him. Just get rid of him. Move on with your life. Right? Like, it's as bad faith as it can get. So, here's a story I've been following for quite some time. Food bank visits hit new record with 1.45 million visits recorded in Toronto in 1 year. Hey, called it. Called it. Called it. Right? For the first time, new clients outnumbered existing clients at Toronto food banks with a 61% increase compared to the year prior. Oh shit, if you cut people's supports, then they've got to go use food banks and find other alternative support systems. Oh, how shocking. Toronto, November 15th, 2021. Daily Bread Food Bank and North York Harvest have released the annual Who's Hungry report, a profile of hunger in Toronto. The report reveals that there were 1.45 million visits to Toronto food banks last year, the highest number of visits ever recorded in Toronto. You want to come up, buddy? You want to come up? Do you want to come up? Okay. This represents a 47% increase compared to the previous year and is 1.5 times higher than the previous record set in 2010 at the peak of the 2008 recession. So we're breaking records here, guys. We're breaking records here. Hey, Vince, how you doing, bud? For the first time, new clients outnumbered existing clients at food banks with a 61% increase compared to the year prior. New clients were more likely to receive income from employment and pandemic benefits such as employment insurance and Canada Recovery Benefit, while the majority of existing clients, 55%, reported social assistance as their primary income source. Food bank clients are experiencing severe food insecurity and living in a state of deep poverty. Food bank respondents had a median income of $1,106 per month, which is only half of Toronto's poverty line of $2,060 per month. 1 in 3 respondents did not eat for a whole day. For 52% of those respondents, this occurred almost every month. Clients spend a median of 68% of their income on housing, 68% of their income on housing, putting them at high risk for becoming homeless. After paying rent and utilities, food bank clients had only $9.17 left per person per day to afford food, transportation, and all other basic needs. If a food bank client takes 2 TTC trips, traveling to work and returning home, they would be left with only $2.77 at the end of the day. Racialized respondents had only $6.67 left per person per day after paying rent and utilities, demonstrating the economic inequities faced in these communities. As the economy reopens, the pandemic restrictions are lifted, those living in low income continue to remain in a state of crisis. The pandemic has made it clear that years of increasing precarious employment, unaffordable housing, and an insufficient social safety net have created a crisis for most people living in Toronto. With food banks visits at a record high, it is clear that we need to implement the report recommendations to achieve systemic change. That's Neil Hetherington, CEO, Daily Bread Food Bank. Food bank clients continue to face significant financial challenges as a result of the pandemic, says Ryan Noble, Executive Director of North York Harvest Food Bank. COVID-19 has demonstrated that we are all connected as a community. We can only be resilient when those who are most marginalized no longer face disadvantages. We need to move from a city where people are struggling to survive to one where people can thrive. The 2021 Who's Hungry report is a call to action from a city in crisis and explores ways to build greater resiliency. Daily Bread and North York Harvest urge that immediate action be taken and have outlined concrete recommendations for how each level of government can respond to the worsening hunger crisis through reducing precarious employment, improving income supports, investing in affordable childcare, and rapidly expanding access to affordable housing. Even then, right? This is even then. I'll say it over and over and over again. I don't care how much affordable housing you build. There are billionaires in the mix. They will buy it. That's what's happening. That's what's happening. I'm glad to see at least someone is talking about this the way it should be talked about, though. It's a crisis. People are in desperate crisis. No, they're not going to go back to normal. They're not going to go back to those jobs that don't even pay the rent, right? This is a crisis. The crisis is capitalism. We need to move away from this model of thinking because it simply does not work. It simply does not work. He's been stalking, troll messages. He said his name in the name of his girlfriend. I mean, it seems to me like this is a person in crisis, Christopher. Like, he spammed with names like I dumped on Casey's grave. Yeah. Like, here's a person who's obviously going through like an emotional trauma and obviously has no outlet for it. Right? Like, why else would you do this? It's so senseless. Hey, Vince, how you doing? Hey, Ruth. Stupid people confuse white supremacy and Nazism and bigotry with communism. Hi, everyone. Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of that these days, Ruth. And a dedicated attempt to try and link communism and fascism or Nazism together. That Stalin is as bad as Hitler was, right? That's a narrative that I'm seeing a lot of. That you're seeing lots of people try to, and honestly, I think that the anti-Stalin position as well comes from other communists, right? Like the Trotskyists, so to speak, right? And it's and I find this kind of classic debate that the antagonism between the Trotsky camp and the Stalin camp to be an absolute gift to the capitalist class. That the capital, if I was a capitalist, I'd be doing everything I could to ensure that there was a group of people who were like, Trotsky was right, and a group of people who were like, no, Stalin was right, and have those groups constantly at odds with one another so they can never join forces against their common enemy, which is them, the capitalists, right? So, it seems to me to be quite effective, honestly. That people fall into a kind of fundamentalism when it comes to these two figures, as opposed to just acknowledging that they're humans and that they came at each other and there was a crisis. Obviously, that crisis was resolved, and then continues, and there was obviously a rivalry, right? Like, it obviously was a rivalry. Turns out communism doesn't prevent rivalries, guys. Like, it's so I just find the whole thing to be a bit diminutive. Diminished, you know what I'm saying. I think Stalin was a really crazy tyrant, but his economic policies stopping of the Nazis were a good thing. If you think Stalin was a crazy tyrant, I think it's because you don't know enough about Stalin, right? That, like, don't get me wrong, Stalin was the man that he was, right? But I generally take a look, like Mao and Deng, from the rulers of China, Mao and then Deng, both of them agreed that Stalin was about 30% mistakes and errors, but 70% good. And when you consider that this is like literally the first attempt to create a communist society, that's pretty good. Like, that's pretty good. I'm not trying to say that Stalin was a perfect person. Far from it. Well, I shouldn't use far from it, but what I'm trying to say is that he was a man put in constantly difficult positions, blazing a path that had never been blazed before. And if you're not talking about Stalin and Lenin and Trotsky and that whole group of people in that kind of mindset, how these guys are trailblazers going forward, having never gone through this ever before, then you're going to stumble into a lot of weeds, I think. And the Stalin being a crazy tyrant narrative is a very, like, Western propaganda thing. Like, it's every single time I've looked, like, so, like, the Great Purge, or like the Great Terror, if you prefer, right? Which is the Western thing for it. When you look into that, it's actually an incredibly complex, very difficult situation. Obviously an internal conflict within the Communist Party, complete with, like, full-scale trials. Like, if this shit was happening here in North America, we would be, like, enraptured by it. It would be part of our, like, the fabric of our very lives. It would be an incredible thing to see. And or like the Holodorum, right? Or whatever. I never know how to pronounce this properly. Like, essentially what the West does is it takes a look at these difficult situations that societies always deal with, natural disasters, internal power struggles, and instead of saying, here's a group of people trying to work something out within the confines of they just say, communism fails, it doesn't work, and Stalin is a dictator. And, like, the Stalin is a dictator line, I just cannot take it seriously, right? Do dictators often win elections? Like, he like, the communists had elections. It was a communist party. They had internal elections fairly regularly, right? Like, that's how the conflict between Trotsky and Stalin was resolved, right? They didn't, like, have an arm wrestle. They didn't, like, fight each other, right? There weren't guns and bombs and shit. There was an election. Stalin wins the election, right? Like, what a dictator. And then, of course, like, the Trotsky side and the capitalists will say, oh, Stalin won because everyone was so scared of him. And I'm just like, that's literally not how any of this ever works. It's like you're telling me that people were terrified of this guy, and here was another guy that they weren't terrified of, but who also seemed a competent leader. Well, then they would have switched over, wouldn't they? Right? If they're so scared of this guy. Like, if Trotsky's the savior that you're putting it up to be, then people would have gone with him, but they didn't. So, like, Stalin's winning elections, right? Stalin's ruling with the consent of the people. He tries to abdicate his position on 4 separate occasions and is talked out of it. Like, I just don't... This image of Stalin as, like, this evil dictator with the... Oh, like, was he a tough man? Yeah, for sure he was, right? He killed people, right? He killed people. For sure he did. He was killing people when he was young, right? He was a revolutionary, right? He was shooting people dead. He was leading groups of men to kill czarists, to kill monarchs, the revolution itself, right? Absolutely. Did Stalin condemn people to death? Yeah, fucking absolutely. People were executed. It absolutely happened. But it's not as simple as like, I feel like executing people and you will be executed because I'm Stalin. Like, there were reasons behind his actions. And when you actually look into the reasons, they make sense. Like, he's not this tyrant figure that people put at his feet. He simply isn't. Like, he simply isn't. And I don't understand why people who like, you'll ask anybody, how much do you trust your media? And everybody will say, like, on a scale from 1 to 10, everybody is at like 5 or less. Nobody is above 5, right? Everyone's at 5 or less. And yet when it comes to communism and Stalin and China, 100%, yeah, the media is completely correct. They've never lied to us ever about any of that, ever. Stalin was an evil tyrant. Yeah, absolutely. The media is completely correct about that. It's like, literally just go read the Wikipedia articles, right? Like, you can go read the Wikipedia articles and you can see, like, and they tried, like, they've always framed him with like, oh, tyrant and all this kind of stuff. But you go through the events and you're like, wow, like, this is extremely complex and extremely difficult. Like, extremely difficult. To pretend like the Great Purge was just Stalin going around with a sword, just killing people, rounding up people and shooting them, hanging people, and just being like, I'm Stalin! Stalin! It's childish. It's completely childish. Like, there was an internal conspiracy that assassinated a high-ranking communist leader with it, Sergei Kirov, I believe his name was, that assassinated a high-ranking communist leader. It ends up revealing an internal conspiracy involving an entire faction of the Communist Party, right? Like, this is an intense drama that obviously is going to result in tribunals and executions. You don't get to assassinate leaders of the party and walk away from it clean. You don't, right? Obviously what these guys were trying to do is foment an internal coup. Obviously. And then if you take that and go like, wow, what a dictator, great terror. I just don't take it seriously. I just don't. And that's always the way it is with Stalin. That the capitalists take a very difficult situation and they just demonize Stalin and assume that he was doing what he was doing because he was evil. And that's the only way that you can follow through on this stuff. Like, the second you just consider, maybe Stalin was just a man who was a man in a situation and dealing with it as a man. Then you suddenly see, oh yeah, here's his humanity. He's living as a human, making decisions as a human, making mistakes as a human, right? But this idea that he's like a horned devil going around and just executing even his own communists, it's nonsensical. It doesn't make sense, right? And incidentally, it's exactly the same way I view Trotsky. It's exactly the same way I view Mao, right? That these are people put in extraordinary circumstances, and they don't, and they rarely walk away clean, right? Because it's not clean. And I find the sort of dismissals that surround Stalin to be a way to make it clean so that Stalin looks evil. And it's just like, no. Like, no. Not only is that, like, no wonder all of our movies and stories are so fucking boring, right? Like, no wonder they're so fucking boring. Like, we're scared of nuance. We're scared of making interesting, compelling characters. We're scared of looking at stories and being interested in them and interested in compelling ways. Like, I've said it over and over and over again. If they did an HBO show with like the budget of Game of Thrones on the life of Stalin, Trotsky, and Lenin, and did everything they could to make each of those men look like heroes, it would be the most compelling television ever. Ever. Nothing would come close. Nothing would come close, right? The life of those men and the struggles and the fights and the conflicts and the disagreements and the explosions on each other would make some of the most compelling television you'd ever watch, and it would not be possible to walk away from it and believe that those men were just evil dictators. Like I just can't tolerate this. Like I can't tolerate this. And I find that the rivalry between Trotskyists and Stalinists to be completely unhelpful and a total gift to the capitalist death cult. A total gift. The capitalist death cult is like, yes, continue fighting amongst yourself, communists. Don't join forces. Don't do that. Fight amongst yourself. It's such a gift. Anyway, see what happens if you mention Stalin in here, bud? See what happens if you mention Stalin in here? I work in hospitality industry and live in Alberta. What few jobs there are in this sector, you're competing against hundreds of applicants. This devastated industry is not recovered. Yeah, and it's not going to, right? You've got to remember, here's something to think about, Harry. You got to remember that the money has all gone to the top, right? That the billionaire class has doubled its wealth over this pandemic period. That means that if you have a pool of money, right? Well, it's all gone to the top. It's all gone right? So that means the only people that can actually afford to buy anything has diminished. So the consumer base itself is smaller. Your population base isn't smaller. It's just that these people over here can't buy shit. They can't purchase anything. And we've been told that, oh, the way to increase an economy is to give money to rich people and then they'll invest in all this, but that's garbage. Right? Your economy is only as strong as its weakest people. That people need to spend money. And the more people that are spending money, the stronger your economy is going to be. Period. And if they can't, then your economy's not working. Right? But that's exactly what we've done. And now we've even cut supports for people. So these people even have less money to spend. Right? So they have less money to spend now. And so when you have a giant pool of money underneath a small group of people who only require a certain level of services, like they're not going to buy 1,000 pairs of pants, right? They're not going to eat more than 3 meals a day, right? Like they can't replace millions of people in terms of their food consumption or any of these sorts of things. And so what you end up with is industries that are completely stifled because no one can buy their services. And it doesn't matter how much money the owners of those services have, right? Because they're not going to consume enough to replace the people who can't afford the service any longer. And so they're not going to hire people. They're not going to open new businesses. They're not going to expand services. Quite the opposite. And how do you ameliorate this situation? Right? How do you alleviate this and actually kickstart your economy and actually build something, build back better and all that kind of stuff? You give your money to the poor. Because if you give money to the poor, suddenly they have money to spend. Suddenly that means more services can be rendered. They're going to consume more. They're going to enjoy more entertainment venues. They're going to do all this kind of stuff. Right? They're going to consume more and get more services, so you need to hire new people and open new businesses and do all that kind of stuff. We have inverted reality with neoliberal capitalism. That neoliberal capitalism is a religious ideology. It's not an economic system, and it's an inversion of what economics actually is. That economics starts by giving money to the most amount of people, including the poor. And if you're not doing that, you're not doing economics. Period. So of course they're not going to recover. Of course they're not recovering. How could they? No one has any money. Oh, I'm seeing a bunch of challenges to my statements on Stalin. Looking forward to that. I saw a study that people aren't going to retail jobs because of the Karens and Kens that have come out of the closet and refuse to be abused for minimum wage. Yeah, there's that too. Right? This pretentiousness that exists amongst the liberals, the Karens and the Kens, that they deserve to be served, right? Like, the distinguishing thing, what distinguishes a Karen and a Ken from the rest of the populace? Karens and Kens view themselves as player characters in a single player game where we are just their NPCs. And if one of the NPCs starts to act in a manner that is not what they expect or desire from their NPCs, for those who don't know what I'm talking about, it's a non-player character, right? It's a scripted robot that the player character gets information from or interacts with. If the non-player character begins to act in a way that's unexpected, they'll just ask to speak to the manager. And when they say, I want to speak to the manager, what they're saying is, I want to speak to the higher ranking NPC so I can get what I want, right? And this is how they view politics as well. They're going to vote for the person who is going to create a society of servitude for them. Because I work a full-time job, like I'm a Karen and a Ken, I work in management, right? Usually they're like middle management. And I deserve to be served, right? I work a full-time job. I take care of a group of people, right? I manage a group of people, right? Another group of NPCs I have to interact with in this game of mine, this game of management, right? And so because I do that, I deserve to be served. And lots of people are starting to go, fuck you, no you don't. Get fucked. You don't deserve to be served. You're a child. Get fucked. You're not going to manage me. You're not going to speak to my manager. You don't get to speak to the manager of my life, right? I'm the manager of my life, and I say you don't get any service. Yeah, the lowering of CRB was bad enough, absolutely. Trotskyists and Marxist-Leninists believe in, for the most part, the same principles. We just have a different view of history. That's exactly it, Mocked. That's how I look at it, too. That, like, Trotsky, for example, was absolutely instrumental in the revolution, right? Absolutely. Like you cannot diminish his achievements and his accomplishments. And that I genuinely do think that, like, if Trotsky himself has a character flaw, it's his inability to compromise, right? That when he comes to the table and the leadership convention happens and he loses, right? Because Stalin is the better politician, frankly. Well, instead of attempting to find a way to stay within the ranks of the Communist Party and stay within the ranks of respectability in his own country, he alienates himself completely, right? Like, and that's really obvious. Like, I think that's obvious that he alienates himself. And then, because if think about Trotsky if he had have lost that convention and then fallen into self-reflection and humility, right? Well, that would have been a different situation, I think. And I think he could have still been a powerful intellectual force within the Communist Party. I really do think that's true. But instead of that, he goes into exile, starts working with capitalist forces essentially against the Stalinist bureaucratic dictatorship, as they call it, right? Like, and we're all just supposed to believe Trotsky's line on things, right? It'd be like listening to Aaron O'Toole on Justin Trudeau and just taking it for verbatim for the truth. I just don't think that's wise. I'll continue to refuse to call Canada a first world nation until we have $3,000 a month basic income, increase with inflation, average rent prices in area. Yeah. No, I completely agree with you, dude. Like, we're heading into techno-feudalism. That's what it is. We are all slaves to the corporate oligarchy aristocracy. Yeah. Yeah. Like, that's what's happening. That's what's happening. Young Stalin, for those of you... Hey, how you doing, Onward? For those of you who don't know, young Stalin... Like, Stalin was kind of a babe, right? Like, you can't take it away from him. Like, look at this guy. This counts, man. This counts. First and third world refers to how much money a nation has and how the quality of life for the upper middle class suburbia is. Actually, Christopher, interesting on this is that the concepts of first, second, and third world were actually created post-World War II by the Americans, or the Allies. And that the first world was the term they used for America and the Allies of World War II, the winners, if you like, for World War II. The second world was the Soviet Union, right? So they explicitly create this dynamic to exclude the Soviet Union from the first world, intentionally. But in doing so, they say the first world is like, this is where we and the Allies live, right? This is it. This is the best world, right? The first world. You can be the second world. That's your territory. You have it. We're not going to mess with you, okay? That's, even though they were planning on messing it, but then they built a nuclear bomb, and so they're like, oh, fuck it. So we can't invade the Soviet Union anymore because they have a nuclear bomb. So second world. Third world was the rest of the world, which the Americans explicitly said we own, right? And that's the distinguishing factor. It's not. It actually doesn't have anything to do with economic position or how developed a place is or any of that. Especially as we're moving forward, and some of these like first world countries are beginning to decline pretty sharply, or at least stagnate, while third world countries are actually beginning to ascend. Like, China is technically a third world country, but would you take that seriously? Right? Do you take that seriously? I don't. And but that's what distinguishes those terms. That it's literally Allies, the Soviet Union, the rest of the world. The Allies own the third world. And that's exactly how they've acted. Basic human decency and standard of living isn't a difficult issue to achieve. That's a really rough irony of it all. It's more than affordable, actually profitable. And CRB proved it's fast. Yeah, and isn't it interesting how everyone should have food and shelter has become like a far left, like communist idea, right? Isn't that weird? Isn't it odd that we're all sitting here being like, hey, maybe one of the absolutely crucial things that a society should be able to achieve is feeding and sheltering all of its citizens. And if you say that out loud, you're a commie! Instead of just being like a rational, normal, empathetic, free-thinking person. Like, I say it over and over and over again. I consider my positions on food and shelter and the clothing of all of these people to actually be conservative positions. It's a conservative position to say that everyone should have food and shelter. Like, it's explicitly conservative. Everyone should have food and shelter. Like, I don't see why that's considered a far left idea at all. To me, that's like very conservative. You don't want starving people. You don't want like unemployed people who are wandering around, can't find any meaning because they and all they do is scrabble for like base subsistence. You absolutely don't want that. Right? It's just that we've been so corrupted by this extraordinarily far-right thinking, and our entire politics have skewed so far to the right. The Overton window is absurdly far to the right now. That if somebody stands up and says something that's centrist, well, then they're on the left of the society, because the society is so far to the right. Like, we've gone off the rails. We're not taking care of, like, basic fundamentals, right? Like, if we were a person, we would be filthy. Our apartment would be littered with dishes and trash and bugs. We would be fat and ugly, right? We would not be taking care of our basic necessities. Our home would be collapsing. And the whole time we would be saying how great we are. Like, yikes. Yikes. Like, we are a crazy bitch. Western society has become a crazy bitch. And, like, the people who are still simping hard for capitalism, like, they're just like that dumb boyfriend that a crazy bitch has, right? Where she treats them nice and she smiles and, like, gives them nice things and gives them nice gifts and, like, jerks them off and all this kind of stuff, while we're looking at the two of them being like, yikes. And then she turns to us and she's just crazy. She's like burning down our shit, Like, I don't look at these simps for capitalism like, well, we're just having a disagreement. I literally look at them like, yikes, bud. Like, yikes. You're literally in bed with like a psychopath, right? Like this psycho girl that destroys everyone else's lives. She just likes to jerk you off, dude. Like, yikes. Big yikes. Stalin had a ridiculous amount of power, being the general secretary and the premier at the same time. Yeah, I don't disagree with that. He absolutely had a ridiculous amount of power that his own party kept giving him. Yeah, but he was popular and won elections. Yeah, right before the Great Purge happened. Like right before the Great Purge happened. Right before this fellow Sergei was assassinated, or murdered, or whatever you want to call it. Right before that, they actually held elections. And Stalin maintained all of his positions. He maintained all of his stuff, right? So assured was his position of leadership within the party that no one even formally called for the election of him. They literally just skipped it. Like, formally skipped it. I don't mean that, like, they were like, oh, we can't even call the election because Stalin's so big and powerful and strong. But they literally were like, no, Stalin's the leader. There's no credible, like, anybody want to stand up and challenge him? No? Okay. Like, that's literally what it was. And then from there, you have a group of people, like a group of co-conspirators who got together in order to challenge his power, but they were so small and ineffectual that they just get pushed over, essentially. And then the assassination attempts begin. So, like, and no one is denying that he has a certain amount of power, but the question is his power legitimate or illegitimate? And because it is granted to him from the apparatus that, the same apparatus, like this is the incoherence of sort of the Trotskyist position, honestly. The same apparatus that was erected by Trotsky and Lenin and Stalin and the rest, right? Because there's a bunch of them. They all erected this ruling system that they'd been operating with for decades, right? That they've been operating with for decades. The same system that helped them organize the revolution itself is the same system that they used to move forward. And if they wanted to change the system, they all elected it. They all agreed upon it, right? Like this idea that Stalin is just this evil guy holding onto the reins of power with like his teeth bared and a sword in his hand is just like, it's incoherent with the facts. It's completely incoherent. It's just a fantasy. Yeah, but then that means we need to tax billionaires. At this point in the game, guys, like, let's be straight. The billionaires will be lucky if taxation is the only thing that happens to them. Straight up. Like, you guys know what I say on this channel, that we should be arresting many of these guys. Like, we should be arresting them, we should be incarcerating them, we should be stripping them of all their assets, we should be stripping away all of their wealth, certainly, but certainly the means of production. Like, these guys are psychopaths. Right? Like, they're not good people. And the people who are simping for them are just like it's like Renfrew from Dracula. Like, yes, master, whatever you say, Mr. Musk. Oh, Mr. Musk going after Mr. Sanders. Good one, Musk. That's who they are. Like, it's who they are. And like, especially like the people who have been, in regards to climate change. Like, if you're the CEO of a fossil fuel company or an investor in these fossil fuel companies, like, you need to be arrested. Like, you need to be arrested. Like, we need full-scale tribal tribunals, full-scale investigations into the duplicitous nature of the fossil fuel industry, right? They've risked our lives for their money. Like, yeah. So if having to pay their taxes is the worst thing that happens to these guys, they're very lucky. Because there are people like me, saying that we should arrest them and put them in prison for the rest of their lives. Bare minimum. And we should. Like, we should. Sorry, based on this document alone, right? The climate deception dossier, based on this document alone, these guys should be in jail. Like, they shouldn't be allowed to continue doing this job. They're obviously terrorists. They're obviously liars. They're obviously traitors. Obviously. Like, it's obvious. You've got to be a total fucking dunder to think otherwise. Like literally, you've never read a document. You don't know what the fossil fuel industry even is. You think that rules are terrorism. Like, this is the level of objective stupidity that you have to be living in to disagree with the idea that people who commit crimes should have to have consequences for those crimes. Like, it's real shocking. Yeah, DPRK had elections too. Yeah, exactly. Like like there's always some kind of electoral mechanism, right? This is the thing that people, the big thing that I'm always learning more and more and more, right? The only time that you end up with a dictator in modern society is if they are supported by an enormous backing of wealth, i.e. capital, right? So like Saddam Hussein was a dictator. Why? Because he had billions and billions and billions of dollars of support from the capitalist class, right? He could be. And that steadily started to fall apart for him, right? The Americans started to withdraw their power from him. He started to act in the interest of his own people, right? So they killed him. But like there's just no such thing as like a communist dictatorship. Like, what are you even talking about? How do you even organize a group of people like this? Do you genuinely think that like Mao was walking around just like pointing at stuff and being like, do that? And everyone was just like, oh, it's the great and powerful Mao. Like this ascribes a like godhood to these figures that they could not have possibly had, right? Like that they were walking around like literally shining with light, pointing at things and saying, do that, and people will be like, oh, if I don't, I will die. It's like, yikes. No, like they had regular elections. They won those regular elections. And were those elections held within a Westminster parliamentary democracy? Of course not. Like, of course they weren't. Because that's a Western phenomenon. That comes out of the monarchies of Western Europe. And then North America, right? Like, of course they're not using your system of democracy, but that doesn't make it less democratic. It just makes it a different structure. Don't like Stalin killed Trotsky? Trotsky was assassinated for sure. And that gets into tough territory between Stalinists and Trotskyists. Like, did Trotsky help organize, like, this great purge I was just talking about, where there was, like, assassinations and assassination attempts? Was Trotsky help organizing that? Right? Like, this kind of flows to what I was saying before. Like, Trotsky loses, and instead of finding a way to reintegrate himself into the society, alienates himself, flees, right? Well, he obviously doesn't just shut up, right? Like, he produces a lot of, he throws a lot of shit. He throws a lot of shade, which is why the capitalists love him, obviously, right? Like, here's a guy that came out of the Soviet Union that's talking a lot of shade about Stalin. Let's grab him and just believe everything he says 100% of the time. And, like, is Trotsky starting to work with sympathizers within the Communist Party in order to try to assassinate people? Good question. Good question. That's the speculation. That's the speculation. But I don't like that. I don't like the speculation. But it's like, and again, the two obviously had a rivalry. Like, the rivalry lasted until until Trotsky died. Like, they never found a way to ameliorate that. And that's fascinating. It's a fascinating story. He was general secretary during the developmental phase of the USSR. He left that position in 1952 when the USSR had been stabilized. Yeah. Always with the facts, Mocked. That's what I like about you, bud. Always with the facts, keeping me honest. And that's something I always say. And that's the reason why I refuse to be a fundamentalist about any of this stuff. Like, I'm never, ever just going to be like, no, Stalin said this, so Stalin with his Stalin. Like, I'm never. Same thing with Trotsky. Trotsky said this, so I'm Trotskying with the Trotsky. And Mao, and all of them, right? I refuse. I outright refuse. I refuse to be a fundamentalist. Like, I want to know what the truth was. And I think that's why people like me and like this channel, is because fundamentally, if I say something and you can show me that I am wrong, I capitulate instantly, right? I refuse to do anything but. If you can show me any of my statements are wrong on a factual basis, and mocked, you always are good for this, I will capitulate instantly. And if I don't, that's the minute that this channel starts to die. The minute that I do not capitulate upon when I'm presented with facts that confound my general thesis, that's the minute this channel starts to die. And I know that that's the truth. Always tell the truth. Always. Even if it means it kills your heroes. That's the hardest part about this conversation between Trotsky and Lenin, really. Or Trotsky and Stalin, rather. There's so much like veneration and hero worship, right? Like Trotsky is a hero to people. People look at Trotsky as like this enormous sympathetic hero. And in many ways that's true. But you know what else he was? A man, right? He was a human being. He wasn't a shining golden god. His story isn't mythical. It's kind of legendary, like it's incredible, but he's not. He's not Jesus Christ. Like he's not infallible, right? He's not this. He's not a figure of literature. He's not like Harry Potter, you know. Like he's just a person, and the deep, dark, unfortunate truth of people is that they fail and are wrong, and can fall into emotional straits and be captured by emotional energies and that's what makes them compelling and interesting, right? Yeah. So I always tell the truth, even if it kills your heroes, and that's the hardest part about this conversation, is that you'll talk to people who think that like these guys are heroes. And like Herculean heroes. And you're like, okay, but your Herculean hero like also did this, right? And that's just true. And then they get into like, oh yeah, but he did this because of this. And I'm like, okay, good. That's your kind of justification for it. But they still did it, right? Like they're still part of it. Like, anyway. I find this like Lenin, Stalin, and Trotsky, their relationship, like those three men, to be utterly fascinating. Those three men are just completely fascinating to me. He was General say, I personally am not a fan of DPRK. South Korea has a communist party trying to unite Korea, but of course they got regime changed. Yeah, of course. I mean, the DPRK is like, people do not like to actually acknowledge that North Korea got leveled to the ground, right? Like, there was not a standing structure. It was rubble. They destroyed that place. And the fact that it's managed to build back and is now in reunification talks with South Korea is only good. And I genuinely do not think that Westerners have the right to critique North Korea's build back strategy. We don't. We're the ones that leveled them to rubble. I think that critiquing them as they attempt to stand back up to be extremely dishonest and something that a bully does, right? It's something that a bully does. Like, we're the ones that blew them up. They can build back how they'd like, and we should just shut our mouths about it. But we're not going to do that, obviously. We're America, so we're going to do what we do. Liberals are at 10. I don't think I understand that. These people who agree with everything the media says about communism, China. Oh yeah, I see what you mean, Christopher. Yeah, the liberals are like, yeah, the media is great. Yeah. But even then, like, liberals are at 5. Like, nobody trusts above 5. Like, nobody is above 5. I've never met anybody. Those people who agree with everything the media says about communism, China, are, the real life so true Wojak meme. Yeah, dude. It's shocking because it's like some of this stuff is like super easy now to disprove. Like, what I have one here that's about the Uyghur genocide, right? Which I've gone into a great deal to disprove. Oh, you know what? I'm just going to stop for a second. Some of our comrades that are in our Discord are organizing to be the Alberta NDP Socialist Caucus. So at November 27th, 5 p.m., right? If you are in Alberta, there's the QR code. There's you can RSVP, right? Champagne with Socialists, virtual meet and greet, right? That some of our comrades here from the channel in the Discord are organizing to become part of the Socialist Caucus and to rather form the Socialist Caucus for the Alberta's NDP. I say good luck to them. If anybody would like to participate or join, and would like to join the Discord and get direct contact with these guys, you can send $1 my way into the Patreon. That gets you into the Discord. Or I will happily just send your info along, honestly. And I'm so over the moon that socialists that I'm connecting with are beginning to actually mobilize and actually take action. Wonderful to see. Wonderful to see. Good luck to them. And I'm going to try to offer my support as best I can, report as best I can on what happens with them. I'll keep you informed on that. But what was I saying here? Oh yeah. Like the Uyghur genocide narrative has become like they literally can't maintain it anymore. Did I close this? I hope not. Yeah, here we go. U.S. urges China to take Afghan refugees while accusing China of Muslim genocide. The Afghan population is 99.7% Muslim. U.S. accuses China of genociding Muslims. U.S. urges China to accept Afghan refugees. China is committing a genocide against Muslims. China should take in Muslim refugees. Like, it's an incoherent narrative. The more I learn about it, the more incoherent it becomes. You're funny, the way you talk about Stalin. If I wasn't subscribed, I would have done it by now. Well, how nice, Christopher. Let the world know. Let the world know. I find that so much of our opinions on Stalin and on communism generally are not based on what we know, but what we've been told, right? So why should we believe that? Like the people who have been telling us stuff have never told us the truth on anything. Why should we believe them here? Trotsky starting the Fourth International was such an idiotic move. A French propaganda film about Stalin portrayed Lenin and Trotsky positively, which is something I've never seen before. Yeah, I mean, it's difficult not to show Lenin positively. Like, he really was. Like, the reason why Trotsky and Stalin's rivalry didn't come to a head earlier was because of Lenin. For sure. And Lenin was clearly, like, torn between those two people. Like, and that's obvious, if you ask me. That, like, I think Lenin really liked Trotsky, and I think he liked Stalin. Right? Like, I think he liked both of these guys. And sure, they, like, bickered. And sure, they, like, had, like, moments where they insulted each other and all that kind of stuff. Because they're dudes. Like, sorry. Like, there's this story that's, like, an infamous story where, like, Stalin insults Lenin's wife. And everybody is like, oh, about it. And how it's, like, this huge wedge that their relationship was torn asunder from it, and it was irreconcilable, blah, blah, blah. And I'm literally like, what? You don't have any male friends? Like, you don't have a male friend? Like, dudes are dudes, and they do dude stuff, and they make stupid mistakes. And from everything I've seen, Stalin was sorry about that. And it looks like Lenin accepted that apology. Like, I don't know. You know? Like, I just feel like things get so overblown. Oh, Vince. Sad news. Jimmy Dore defended Kyle Rittenhouse? That's tough to think about, dude. That's tough to think about. Jimmy Dore defends Kyle Rittenhouse. That's bad news. Because Jimmy Dore's kind of been going off the rails a little bit recently. Jimmy Dore actually revealed in an unedited clip that he didn't know he should have researched the Boogaloo Boys movement more, that he didn't know who Kyle Rittenhouse is, or what the ADL stands for, despite using the article as a defense of his actions. Yeah. Yeah. Like, here's the thing that I think is actually happening with Jimmy Dore, okay? Jimmy Dore has been elevated to the level of, like, journalist, of, like, informing people and breaking stories and all of this, and he really shouldn't be doing that. Like, not to say that he shouldn't be doing that, but just to say that we should, like, a figure like him should not be taken as seriously as he is. You understand me? Like, he's a nightclub comedian. He will say that to you, right? I don't think what I'm saying is going to offend anybody. He's not a journalist. He has no journalistic backing. He has no institutional backing. He's not funded, right? Everything he's doing on his own, with his own kind of thing forward. He is revealing to us how degenerate and worthless journalism is in North America now. How do we know that it's worthless? Because a figure like Jimmy Dore is taken seriously. Okay? Like, and this is my position on Jimmy Dore, and it always has been. I like Jimmy Dore. I like what he does. I'm happy that he's in the mix. I don't take him that seriously. You understand? You know why I don't take him that seriously? Because he's a nightclub comedian. That the only reason he has any credibility whatsoever is because he has no peers. Because the entire institution of journalism has collapsed. Leaving behind this small guy being like, hey, have you noticed the truth? Hey, there seems to be truth over here. And people are going, holy shit, here's a guy who's at least even attempting to tell the truth. And what's going to happen with Jimmy Dore? He's going to stand up and he's going to say some stupid shit that doesn't make any sense. That's an inevitability. He has no fact checkers. He has nobody behind him. He's literally just perusing the internet and putting stuff together. And it's a testament to his ability to produce a clean product to convince us, a gullible population, that he actually has authority when he obviously does not. Obviously does not. He's a nightclub comedian. He doesn't have an editor. There's no producer. There's nobody around him. There's no institution. There's no structure. That the whole thing has just become so rotted and incredulous and unbelievable that we're rejecting it to the level that a guy like him is being taken more seriously. And so we're trying to layer upon him this expectation that he can never, ever, ever meet. He could never meet this expectation that we put on him because he's not a journalist. He's not. And I bet you anything that if you were to confront him with some of this stuff, he would capitulate. He's just a dude. He's just a dude who's following what he thinks is right in his heart. That's it. That's it. And it's a true testament to how powerful that kind of genuine authenticity actually is, that he can move forward and making these errors and making these mistakes and doing these sorts of things and still being an important figure. So not only do I think Jimmy Dore is a well-meaning, good intent nightclub comedian, but the fact that he's being lifted up to the level that he's being lifted up shows you how degenerate the rest of it is. He absolutely should not have this position. No one should be talking about Jimmy Dore this way. No one should be taking Jimmy Dore as seriously as they do. But we do because nobody else is there. Right? That the whole thing is fucking illegitimate. And so we're like, yeah, Jimmy Dore. Like, Jon Stewart actually said this. Like, the news media was commenting when Jon Stewart was on the ascension, right, at his peak. And news media was saying to him, like, hey, lots of people are going to you for news. Like, what do you think's going on? And Jon Stewart said to them, he just said, like, I think you guys are getting closer to me than I'm getting closer to you. And what he means by this is that the news media is losing credibility, losing so much credibility that a fucking comedian, a nightclub fucking comedian who like goes on stage and tells like penis jokes and shit can trounce these guys. Should not be the case. It is incredible that it is the case. And I always say this of Jimmy Dore. Like, when we make these kinds of discoveries of him, and we will, he's a man, right? This attitude of like taking it and then like being like, and this dismisses him, and he's out of the discourse and all this kind of stuff. Fuck all of that. I almost guarantee that if you went to Jimmy Dore and you said, hey bud, we've noticed this, that, and the other thing and all this kind of stuff, that he'd be like, yeah, you know, I try. I'm doing my best. And that's accurate. He's doing his best. And we should fact check and we should look at what's the truth and all that kind of stuff. But to take a man like Jimmy Dore out of the conversation entirely over it, nah. Because he's trying his hardest. He's trying his best. God bless him for doing it. I've never seen anything that convinces me that he's been bought by anybody, that he's trying to control some kind of narrative, that he's trying to do something. And I just wish that we were more comradely about it. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't mind that the Surfs or Sam Cedar or all these guys are making videos being like, well, Jimmy Dore said this, but we've got this. But it's always done with this kind of smug self-satisfaction. There's always this like, aha, gotcha. There's always this like sense of like, this'll do it. Finally, we can knock out the foundation of Jimmy Dore and he'll topple. And I'm just like, it just feels greasy and gross. And just like, again, it's because we're not really grown-ups, right? That we want people to be in this like heroic infallibility space that no one could ever live in. No one could ever be there. Like, that could never be the case. And so when you find mistakes or when you find these kinds of stuff, I just wish that we were looking at these kinds of things and saying, oh, hey, Jimmy Dore said this thing that we kind of can show is not correct. Jimmy, what do you think about that? And then create an environment where a guy like Jimmy Dore could be like, oh, I was wrong about that. My bad. Like, I'm sorry. Like, or allow him to fucking double down and dig his own grave. Right? Like, we don't need to go at him with this kind of smug self-satisfaction. And I feel this way about like guys like Sam Cedar, guys like the Surfs, like Lance and all these guys, right? Like, I just wish there was more of a spirit of like, we're all, God bless us all, we're trying. And a guy like Jimmy Dore, because of who he is, he can go off into left field. And every so often he goes off into left field and he grabs something, he brings it back and he shows it to us and we all go, oh, fuck, that's right. And if it wasn't for a guy like Jimmy Dore going off into left field and like going out there and having us all go like, what a kooky, like what a weirdo, like what a strange, odd, crazy loser guy. If it wasn't for him doing that, we would never know about it. He's done that on several occasions. And you can't take it away from him that he's done that. So he's an ally. He's our friend. He is our friend. Like, he is. And does he put his ass in it sometimes? For sure. But like, let's use the baseball analogy, right? Like, if every single time a player made an error on a play, it threatened whether or not they would be fired or not, I just think that would create a shitty environment. And I don't like it. I don't like that shitty environment. I think we should forgive people. I think we could ask him about it, confront him about it, if you like to put it in those sorts of terms. But like, God help me if I ever do something like this. Right? God help me if I ever make a mistake like this. If I ever like say something that somebody then comes with a document and says, aha, Jonathan, I've got you now. Your whole life's work should be canceled and taken off of the internet because you said a thing about the guys that I disagree with that I can show is inaccurate. Instead of coming to me and be like, hey, dude, you said a thing that is actually inaccurate, and let me look at it and be like, oh, shit, you're right. And then let me report on it. Or have you on, and we can discuss it. Like, and I've seen Jimmy Dore capitulate, right? He's capable of that. But it just feels so backbitey, and it just feels so, like, shitty. It just feels so shitty to, like, just like, attempt to, like, publicly, like, oh, Jimmy Dore is just a loser. I mean, sometimes. Like, I'm a loser sometimes. Right? Like, and just, the reason why this bothers me so much is because, like, Jimmy Dore, Sam Cedar, Lance from the Surfs, like, and there's a bunch of others, tick them down the list, right? They're allies. They're allies. They're all working for the same cause. Do they agree on everything? Obviously not. I just wish that they understood that it's better for all of them if they actually started to lift each other up instead of trying to tear each other down. And that it's fine to say, like, hey, like, we see this thing that you do and all this kind of stuff. Can we get an opinion or a kind of thing on this? And I actually think that would draw them closer together, right? That if they started to talk to each other like that, where it was like, well, Jimmy Dore said this, but we noticed this here, and hopefully Jimmy can clarify this for us. And like send that out into the world and ask Jimmy Dore, hey, can you clarify this for us? Can you maybe take a position? Give Jimmy the opportunity to respond to it without this being like a smug, like, I've got my chest up and Jimmy Dore said something wrong and I'm the best. I'm the best. And Jimmy Dore's got to come in there and be like, oh, and it's so tedious. It's so tedious. I just find it to be tedious. Tedious is exactly the word, right? And we need men like Dore. We do. We need men like Dore. We need men who are willing to go off into left field and be wrong. We need it. Especially right now. Especially right now. Because our entire news media is false. Everything's a fraud. Everything's completely fraudulent. I don't believe any of these guys whatsoever. We definitely need a guy that's willing to just, like, walk into this, like, knives going and, like, people stabbing at him and all this kind of stuff, and he's just walking forward, being like, I speculate that at the end of this there is something that I can grab onto, and he grabs a hold of it, and people are stabbing him in the back and trying to get at him, and they're being like, fuck you, fuck you. Then he stands in front of all of us and goes, I've got it! I've got it! And we all look at him and we go, do you, Dore? Do you? Because occasionally we look at what he's got and we go, oh. Like the Russiagate thing. Jimmy Dore fucking nailed the Russiagate thing, dude. He nailed it. Right away, too. Right away. They came out and they said Russiagate and he instantly was like, that's bullshit. And then set on a crazy journey of proving that it was bullshit. And he did. So when a guy like this takes chances, goes way off into left field, makes errors, does mistakes, I say we let him. And also I say we let him with love and support. And sure, we can comment on his mistakes and be like, yeah, here's something and all that kind of stuff. But I just find the whole project of trying to tear figures like Jimmy Dore down, trying to tear each other down, to be tedious and frustrating. And I hope never to fall into that trap. Really, because I really do think the biggest reason that is done is because that gets the most views. I mean, look at me. Look at me right now. Now I'm clicking on this video. This is getting more views, all that kind of stuff. People like conflict. Conflict's like Lenin versus Trotsky, right? We like conflict. But we're focusing on an internal conflict between allies instead of recognizing that we all need to form ranks, come together with solidarity and love and accept each other's failings and accept each other's mistakes and don't confront one another with threats of exclusion or canceling. And which is always the implication beneath all of this. That, aha, we found a flaw with Jimmy Dore, so now we can exclude him. Instead of accepting, they're like, oh, we found a flaw here, so let's talk to him about it and get a consensus. So that we can form ranks as allies against our true enemy, against the actual conflict. which is the conflict between capitalism and the rest of us. That's the real conflict. The real conflict is between capitalism and the survival of the human species. And all this like internal backbiting shit, all of it is just masturbating. It's just a form of intellectual masturbation that I wish we could get over. And I just don't think we will. And I'm very concerned about it. I'm very concerned about it. Yeah. Godspeed to all people involved. Godspeed to Lance from the Surfs. Godspeed to Jimmy Dore. May we all find our way through this together as friends and allies. Rich do not eat local or shop local, so our system is designed backwards. Yeah, exactly. Kiri, exactly. I'm just not invested in what Jimmy Dore says or doesn't say anymore. And honestly, Onward, that's the most honest thing to say. I haven't actually been that invested in what Jimmy Dore has been saying recently, and it's because he's gone into a very, like, I'm not saying anti-vax place. That's not what I'm saying, but he's very suspicious of corporate power in regards to vaccines. He's going into a direction that is more right-wing than what I think, and it's largely speculative what he's doing right now. That's the reason I don't really pay much attention, because he's going largely speculative. But I do think he could come up with some shit. I do think he could suddenly grab a hold of a person or a document or something that could just, for sure. For sure. And I don't want to exclude him from the conversation, because I think he's capable of doing that. I'm a bugged NPC stuck in the terrain. That's so funny, Major. I feel like that's what I'm basically telling people to be, right? Just be a bugged NPC. Don't participate, right? My favorite thing to do to the Karens and the Kens of the world is to just get into a loop, right? Like, become an NPC that just repeats the information, right? And that's the most enjoyable way to interact with these guys, because then they get kind of fussy about it and storm off. I can't get any more information out of this NPC. I'm just going to leave. They shop internationally or in large-scale franchises. They never shop locally. If I could. I'm just realizing right now, man, like, I really went on a tirade there about Jimmy Dore. And it's just because I do feel like a personal link to Jimmy Dore. Like, what truly is the difference between what he is doing and what I am doing, really? Like, I feel very much... And I've listened to Dore talk about his spiritual feelings, his life's journey, and I very much feel like we agree with one another on our worldview from that kind of spiritual aspect. And I'm very concerned that the left especially gets caught in this like cancel culture. And I feel like if a man like Jimmy Dore can get canceled, what hope have I? So I take it very personally. I do. And I really do think like a madman like Dore should be allowed to do it. And we should respect his madness more than we do. China, a third world country? What the hell? That's so stupid. That's coming from... Well, post-World War II, it makes more sense, though. Right? Like, the China of today is not the China of 1950, right? Like, they are different places. And, which only tells you how miraculous China's ascension has been, right? That in a very short period of time, China has ascended dramatically. Well, that definition, Canada now is a third world country. No, well, Canada now is a third world. No. Canada's a first world country because we were the Allies. We were with the Allies during World War II. The problem with his power was that the same power was inherited by Gorbachev, who completely dismantled the system using said power. Yeah. No, and Chris, you're hitting on something that I think is absolutely correct about Stalin, which is that Stalin didn't. So much of what was happening during the Stalinist period was the populace and everyone getting behind him as a force of personality, and he didn't structure the system to diffuse power more, or rather, he wasn't successful. He did attempt. He tried to erect a different kind of democratic system. It just didn't go anywhere. People weren't interested because you got to remember, like, the Soviet Union never had like a real like a parliamentary democracy system, right? They never really had that. So they had a form of democracy within the Communist Party, and Stalin wanted to continue the democratization of the culture, but the culture was not really a democratized culture in the first place, and they kind of didn't understand why they should do it, so they didn't. And that to me is probably the biggest critique that I have of Stalin so far. His inability to continue the project successfully after his death or exclusion from it. And that's something that the Chinese are very aware of. The Chinese are always very concerned. The transition of power between Mao and Deng, and then Deng and his predecessor, whose name is escaping me, and then to Xi Jinping, is... they're always deeply concerned. Like, is this transition of power going to turn into the Gorbachev-Yeltsin period? Like, is that what? Because look how fast it happens, right? Look how fast it happens, right? It happened very quickly. The decline of the Soviet Union under Gorbachev and then Yeltsin. Yeah, Harry, you're correct too as well. Gorbachev never dismantled the USSR. He had a 10-year plan to bring the Soviet Union into a market economy. He was pushed aside by Yeltsin and the Russian oligarchs, supported by his Western allies. Yeah, that's a more accurate sort of picture. But like, and some people would call that a dismantling. But like, as we see with China, you can open up your market economy without capitulating your communist principles, right? And I do think that Gorbachev likely saw the journey that way. But then, yes, Yeltsin gets in with the Russian oligarchs and all that. And that's the end of it, right? You see how Vancouver is cut off from the rest of Canada, comrade? We need communist unity or community. I thought he identified as a hammer and sickle. Yeah, dude. Like, we got to be forming ranks and forming parties and getting involved. 22 UCP constituencies call for early review of Alberta Premier Jason Kenney, widely seen as a play to quickly oust the leader. If Kenney is replaced, I'm worried people support the new leader. That's actually very rare. Manitoba is going under this exact same thing. I'm from Manitoba, so I know about the politics. Brian Pallister, the leader of the Conservative Party, resigned. He resigned. And they've got a new guy in there, but nobody really likes him. So it's looking like when the election comes, it's going to be the NDP that take over. So this gambit usually doesn't work, right? Like people will be more willing to go in like, and it follows very clear Machiavellian principles. If people have two choices, one of them being an unknown and one of them being a known, even if the known is kind of a bastard, they'll go with the known. And Rachel Notley was the premier of that. People know Notley. They know who she is. They know what she stands for. They know how she's going to act. So I don't think it's going to work. I don't think the gambit's going to work. Unless they put in somebody who's like super handsome. That counts. Yeah, lose bombs so much during World War II until 50s. Yeah, for sure. I'm in Kelowna, BC, and the storm front moved through an hour ago, and it was pretty powerful. I think the climate is angry, yeah. Why am I not in your Discord? Me ponders. Tom, if you are a Patreon and you're not in the Discord, just send me a message, bud, and I'll give it to you. I'll give you the link, okay? Sorry. Maybe we just missed one another. My bad. I know that the Uyghur genocide is fake because Caleb, someone living in China, disproved it on Cortex Zero stream. Yeah. Well, and there's a lot of information about it. Like you've got Daniel Dumbrill is in China. He's a reporter in China, an American who moved to China. And he reports on this all the time. There was a fellow by the name of Bay Area 415, I believe it was his channel. But he got doxxed because he would wear like full like mask and like sunglasses trying to hide his identity. But he eventually gets doxxed and he's never come back. But he was doing really, really good work disproving the Uyghur genocide. And then even the Gray Zone, like the Gray Zone, Max Blumenthal and that crew have done really good work kind of outing the inconsistencies and the incoherencies of the Uyghur genocide narrative. So there's a lot of information out there. You just need to accept that, like, hey, the same people that lied you into a war in Iraq because of WMDs completely have been lying to you about this as well. Similar to the liberals in the U.S. saying Trump is a Russian agent and a maniac that will nuke the world, and then voting to increase military budget for Trump. Exactly, right? Like, it's incoherent, right? It's just incoherence. You can't believe what these guys say, ever, right? It's just WWE-manship, right? Their actions are all that matters. It's all that matters. What they say is irrelevant. I thought the prosecution made a good closing argument. He had no reason to be there, no reason to have a gun, didn't even medic anyone. Yeah, exactly. No, yeah, like Kyle Rittenhouse, like that kid's got to go to jail, right? Like, it's just, he's probably going to go to jail on a reduced sentence that also lets him like get out for good behavior pretty quickly. Like, there is no way Rittenhouse does not become a martyr for the mega crowd, right? He is a martyr for the mega crowd. Jimmy is streaming now about Kyle and where he is, and that's where he is talking about it. It's on his YouTube channel. I also think there is lag on why my messages are showing up late. Yeah, there's always lag. He does like to remind us that he is a pot-smoking jug. Yeah, working out of his garage. George Carlin was just but exactly pissed off. Like George, like it isn't to say that these guys can't tell the truth or that they're not aware of things outside. It's just like why are we putting them on the same level as like journalists? It's because there are no journalists anymore. In a video I saw, he said he let go a producer because he misquoted an article in one of the graphics. I fact check Jimmy often. One thing that would help would be links to sources. Yeah. They won't say a word about poverty. They give a damn, and mainstream media wouldn't stop until it was something done to it. Yeah, exactly. If they did, yeah, exactly. Like there's 600,000 homeless people at least in America. Like if that was the daily news, if the Daily News was constantly talking about, hey, there's these people in poverty. Hey, we could do something about this. Hey, let's talk to this guy who's researched it. How can we solve this problem of poverty? Yeah, we absolutely would. No wonder why people trust comedians and celebs more. Exactly. Quit talking too much common sense again, John. I'm trying. Are you Beck? I don't know that much about Beck, bud. So maybe, have you ever seen us in the same place at the same time, Barnabas? I don't have time for Doors, Cedar drama. Yeah, for sure. The last time I looked at Doors' channel was like half vax stories. Cedar's is still responding to Tucker Carlson. Yeah, I agree with you. Like it's kind of unfortunate because I do think that the YouTube model encourages this type of behavior. That like that's what people are clicking on. That's what people watch. They watch this like little popcorn dramas, right? And which is what they are, right? And they want to pick sides. You need a podium, comrade John. John, I need a Discord re-invite. I'll get absolutely. So hold on. Let me. I'm just gonna write down some stuff here. So we got Tom, and again, buddy, if you can just send me a thing on Patreon, okay? Just send me a quick message, Barnabas. That would be very helpful because then I can just immediately connect to you and make it nice and easy. Do that right away. Conservative Senator Denise Batters has launched a petition to oust Erin O'Toole as party leader, a high-profile effort by a caucus member who said she lost faith in O'Toole after the election. Yeah, I've been waiting for this to happen. I think it was an inevitability. Like when you consider what they did to Scheer, like Andrew Scheer gained the party seats, knocked the Liberals down to a minority, right? Like, it was a pretty clear win for the Conservatives, but they ousted him anyway. Whereas O'Toole didn't gain any seats, didn't, if anything, the Liberals gained seats and lost a lot of votes. So I think it's pretty likely that he's going to get ousted. Start giving side quests. There's nothing for them to cancel you on. There's nothing for them to cancel you on. Well, they'll just manufacture something. You think Uncle Xi is trying really hard to keep the Congress and pull a barrel pure? Or you think Xi's sold out already? No, I think Xi is absolutely trying to secure his legacy as one of the great communist leaders. That's what I think Xi is trying to do, for sure. Like, he committed to the purge of the party, right? In big ways, big important ways. Like, I wouldn't be too surprised if some of the people who he's ousting will turn into like the Trotsky style figure, right? That like, even within his own faction, he's ousting people from the party, right? Like, he's being very, very aware that this place can get corrupted. It can get corrupted, and he's doing everything he can to try and keep it free from capitalist influence, especially as we're ramping up to a war, right? Like, that's the truth. I'm super handsome. Of course you are, Grinning Guys. Look at that beautiful smile. Vote for Grinning. Grinning Guys are super handsome emperor. Yeah, exactly, dude. Absolutely. You show up with a nice yellow smiling face like that. Our local news, how can we put more rocks under bridges so we don't see the homeless? Yeah, right? Like, how dare homeless be treated like people? How dare we say, like, why aren't we asking, like, hey, how do we get houses for the homeless? How come that's not the headline? How do we house the homeless? How come that's not the headline? Odd, strange, weird. I'm redoing my credit card so I can't continue the donation right now. I understand, bud. Jimmy Dore has a strategy to reach people who consider themselves right-wing. He'll be anti-mandates, then pro-Medicare for all, bridge building, I hope. I think there's some truth to that as well. And there is also truth when people say he does things for the clicks. Like, it is a business, right? It is a business. And that's sort of the failing of the model, right? Is that you do end up with people who care more about their business than they do about the movement, right? I think about the outright frauds, right? Your outright frauds are people like Tim Pool, who just like, he doesn't give a shit about the movement at all. He doesn't care. He cares about the money. That's what he cares about. He's in it for the business. Dora is a little boring for me right now, though. Yeah, for sure. That's a really fair critique, right? Like, and we'll see. We'll see what happens with him, right? Because he could just like fade into obscurity, right? Like, that's possible. Like, he could just end up with like a little niche group of people who are like really dedicated to him. And he could just never, like, this literally can happen, just in a strictly objective way, that he could just never break an important story again. He could just never be at the forefront, at the crest of anything ever again. He could just misinterpret the goings-on of what's happening and hyper-focus on things that his niche audience maybe cares about, but that the wider culture doesn't, right? Like, and it's very difficult to understand or say what those things can or cannot be, right? That one thing could be very explosive over here, but the other thing just might be a very narrow sort of kind of a thing, right? And that could just become Jimmy Dore, and Jimmy Dore may fade into obscurity. Maybe every so often he'll spike up and break through, but people will like kind of know of him, right? And that's just a truism. That's just that's the fate of most commenters and most people, that eventually they will fade into obscurity, and that could 100% be Jimmy Dore's path. I've always known that about him. Like well, and same with Sam Steve, same with all of these guys, everybody, myself, me. It is an inevitability that we all eventually fade into obscurity. It's just, what's the timing on that? Almost every leftist podcast I listen to right now is groping around awkwardly. Yeah, because they don't want to get to the logical conclusion, right? They still think electoral politics can work. They still think that there's got to be a way through this. We've got to be able to comment on this. They don't want to actually say what I say, which is surround the halls of power. Do not organize electorally to get into parties and take them over, but also surround the halls of power. And until the halls of power are surrounded, nothing's going to change. Nothing's going to change. And the reason why these leftist channels are sort of falling into kind of meaningless intellectual masturbation is because they refuse to see what's in front of their eyes and actually acknowledge that, like, fascism is on the rise in serious ways, right? Nazism is on the rise. Our own government here in Canada is full of Nazi collaborators, right? Full of Nazi collaborators who have been arming and giving aid to Nazi groups in Ukraine, right? Like, there's a real story. Like, that's a real story. And again, I think that leftists are in an awkward spot because most of them don't want to threaten their business model. That's it. Most of them don't want to threaten their business model, and they feel if they start reporting on the Nazism that exists within their society, if they start reporting on these death cultists as they are, which is as death cultists, well, then they're going to be confronted and they're going to be taken off the air, right? That this era of McCarthyism can kick off, and they're trying to survive it, right? So it just opens up the field for a guy like me, who's kind of just got a YOLO sort of attitude about all this. YOLO, let's go, murder me, murder me. John, aren't you worried that someone's going to shoot you? Oh, please shoot me. I like commenting on his videos, though. There are enough right-wingers to make it interesting. Yeah, absolutely. UBI or die. Harper did something similar. Yeah, that's. Hey, Tinker, how you doing, bud? That's what's so funny about Harper, right? Like, Harper was a better prime minister than Trudeau. By a lot. Like, it's not even close, in fact. Like, the more I analyze and the more I pay attention to the differences between the Trudeau administration and the Harper administration, Harper was the superior prime minister by a wide margin. By a wide margin. Simply because he put in the childcare benefit. Imagine if Harper put in the childcare benefit and then worked to dismantle it. Then he'd be Trudeau. I don't even expect a grand strategy from most left podcasts. They just seem to be at a loss for anything to say about the moment. Yeah, because, well, and also I think onward, like what people are getting caught into is that so many of these left wingers actually think what they're looking at is politics, right? Like, so they end up commenting on things as if what they're looking at is actually politics. They haven't accepted that what they're looking at is just a show. It's just WWE, like, that's politics. They haven't accepted that, like, Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and Mitch McConnell, they come in and they fight each other and they say their stuff and all this kind of stuff and they hit each other with the chair and there's a ref there that's pretending to try to do stuff, and then another person comes in with the elbow and the audience is losing their mind, being like, oh, they're actually fighting. This fight is real, even though he throws him against the thing and he keeps running and he comes back and then he gets elbow dropped and all that. Why wouldn't he just stop running? But it's real. I insist it's real. It's all real. And like, oh, from the top rope and all this, and it's all entertaining. And there's the commentators on the side, oh, I can't believe it. Unbelievable here in the, oh my goodness, it's the greatest thing of everything. And then the show ends, the audience leaves, all of the wrestlers go behind the curtain, and they all get paid by the same guy. They don't want to accept that. And if you don't accept that what you're looking at is just a show, right? Then you can't really comment on it in any meaningful way. Like, really. Like, you can't actually have meaningful commentary. You just become part of the show. And once you get to the point as a viewer, as I believe you have, that you understand that what you're looking at is a show, that it's political theater, and that that theater is being maintained by an organization of oligarchs and corporations, then whenever anybody is talking about politics, but they're participating in the show instead of commenting on the show, it rings false. It doesn't seem accurate. Because guess what? It isn't. It isn't accurate. And that's the reason why you keep coming back to me. Because I see it for what it is. It's a fucking show. Like, Biden's not the leader of the country. Like, what are you talking about? He's just the guy everybody voted for in this apparatus. In the one moment of participation of the freak show that is this ridiculous, absurdist, like, WWE entertainment venue. Like, it's not politics. It's only politics insofar as the show must be maintained to continue kind of the dazzling illusion. But if the dazzling illusion stopped working, if the populace surrounded the halls of power and acknowledged that all of this politics thing is just a game, it's just a show, well, the oligarch class will get rid of it. And they'll just rule directly. Like, that's what they're doing. So, like, there's a reason why those shows are starting to decline and wane. And because they don't want to live in reality as it is. They want to believe that they can solve things electorally. They want to believe that they can, if we just keep pushing on AOC and Bernie and the squad, right? Without realizing that, like, for fuck's sake, they're called the squad, right? Like, how fucking WWE can you get, right? Like, yeah, but we have to stop the bad orange man, John. Exactly, right? But, like, if you actually, like, watch wrestling and watch drama or anything, right? You understand the concept of the heel, right? We love Trump because he's a heel, right? Remember Toronto looked like a downtown war zone? Harper spent over $1.5 billion on a G20 meeting. Yeah, I remember. I was here for that, dude. Yeah, it was all bullshit. But you know what? You know what Harper didn't do? Harper didn't invade a First Nations tribe and steal their resources the way that the Trudeau Liberals have, right? At least that contained, like, a little bit of sense. Like, yeah, you need security if you're going to have the G20 here, right? I mean, why have the G20 in Toronto at all? That's the big question, right? Like, why have the G20 in Toronto at all? Such a dumb decision. No, I'm not saying that Harper was perfect. I'm just saying that he was better than Trudeau, which, you know, low bar, right? Low bar. Like, Harper actually had ideas and thoughts and enacted those ideas and those thoughts, for better or for worse. Trudeau literally takes cue cards from industry and reads them. That's what he does. Like, he has no ideas or thoughts. He literally is just like, the fossil fuel industry, we will tackle climate change because net zero 2020. We must use oil to fund green projects. Like, that's who he is, literally. Like, he has no thoughts. He has no ideas. He's just kind of happy to be the prince, right? He's just happy to be Prime Minister Trudeau, right? He'll stand in front of the camera, look handsome, and, like, literally a cue card comes up and he reads it. Like, he's the wimpiest, weakest prime minister we've ever had. He has no ideas. He has no thoughts. He has no ambition. He's not interested in anything. He's interested in going to brunch and maintaining his position of power and reads from cue cards. That's it. And he'll read whatever cue card he's given. Dude, you're out of peanut butter, okay? You're out of peanut butter. You understand me? There's no more peanut butter. Can you chew on something else? You got. Look at this. What's this? No, you want peanut butter. Okay, we're doing a peanut butter, bro. Oh, you know what? There's only 15 minutes. You can wait 15 minutes. Wait 15 minutes. Okay. Yeah, and you're right about that, Matthias. They both worked for Galen Weston, for sure. Canadian mainstream media been on Liberal Party payroll since business model of mainstream media became unprofitable. Yeah, can't make bank selling advertising anymore. Yeah. How you doing, Rob? Rob McBean. That's a cool name, dude. The funny thing is, I expect Trump to get reelected and turn into George W. Bush again, like last time, and we'll hear all this 4D chess BS, how he's doing this, all this stuff behind the scenes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like Trump's likely going to be reelected because that's how history works, right? Like, the world likes to make fun of us. And if it's not Trump, it'll be someone like him, right? It's a little too late, in my opinion. It's over, and people are only going to get dumber as we continue down the death march of capitalism. I need Yetis. Don't think I've ever seen you here before, bud. I hope you get those Yetis. Hope you got them. I worry about that too, right? And I worry that, like, my big concern is that, like, the boomers are retreating into their kind of fanciful world of their own creation, right? They have all the wealth, so they can just live in their houses and just sort of like fall into dementia, right? So that's what the boomers are doing. Gen X has always been resigned to their fate, so there's no sense of like drive towards a goal, because for them that's just setting them up for another disappointment, so why bother? And then I'm concerned that the millennials are falling into that same thing where there's a sense of sort of self-immolation. A lot of millennial humor surrounds acceptance of death and suicide. That's a lot of millennial humor these days. And that really carries with it this sort of resignation that things can't change, that it's too late. And then Gen Z seems to just be falling into total absurdism. That all of their humor and all of their stuff is just wacky absurdism, Dadaist nonsense, which is great. Don't get me wrong. Like, I think a lot of it is really poignant and fun, but and we do need to go through a pretty strong Dadaist period, like really, really like culturally dismantle the authority of a lot of this stuff, and but I'm worried that none of that is going to manifest itself into what needs to be done, which is to surround the halls of power and take to the streets. Trudeau's haircut, though, am I right? Yeah. Oh, he had a beard, then he didn't have a beard. What an interesting, complex individual. Harper played music. Yeah, he did. He was. The thing about Harper is that he was a dweeb. That's the thing about Harper, right? I think that if Harper looked like Trudeau, people would have liked him a lot more. But the problem is that he was a dweeb, you know? Well, and he is a dweeb. He's super a dweeb. And he's evangelical Christian all the way, right? The Green Deal is a farce because we need cobalt, sand, rare earth minerals, and gas in order to make renewables. Yeah. I always watch your videos. I'm more of a lurker. Oh, well, that's nice to hear, Yeti. That's really nice to hear, to know that I've got lurkers out in the world. So to all of the lurkers out in the world, bless your heart. Mwah, to all of you. I appreciate each and every one of you. First is a tragedy, then is a farce. Yeah, you guys are depressed. You must not have heard that Biden signed the infrastructure bill today. You're welcome. Damn, he finally signed the 2.8. No, sorry, 2.1. What did it end up being? Like 1.2. So like 3 times less than they promised in the first place. And then the infrastructure bill, like, all of that money is just going to go into developers. They're going to like slap up some shit that's going to fall over in 5 years. And they're just going to funnel all that money into their offshore accounts. Like, that's all they've done. Like, I love talking to like the Biden crowd, like the people who are like, yeah, Biden. And it's like, they're celebrating this. And I'm like, oof, how weak are you? Like, how weak are you? It's so weak. Like, you're simping for this? Like, oh man, that's weakness, man. We need degrowth if we want to survive as a species, but no human being is actually going to do that on a planet-wide scale, yeah? The only thing left is death of the biosphere, and I don't know how many humans will exist after the end of the century. That infrastructure deal is a farce. It's mostly public-private partnership, yeah? Government giving money to corporations to build instead of doing it themselves, yeah? Which means it's going to be done shoddily and shittily. I still think we can get ahead of it, Yetis. I still think that we can. I still think that you're right, though. It's about stopping. It's about stopping. right? It's not about building something or transitioning to something or doing this kind of thing. It's about stopping. Like, we need to stop doing like lots of things. Like, especially when it comes to like military, like people are starting to point out more and more that the military of North America has been excluded from all of this, when the American military is the #1 producer of pollution in the world. And it's not even close. Like, we have to start talking seriously about that and actually stop. But my gerbs! Capitalism requires huge government, but capitalism hates government interference. Yet another contradiction, exactly. Jobs are humiliating. Well, these jobs certainly. These jobs certainly. Gerberland! Yeah. A little bit of good news. Why not? Canadians are asked, what do they think about immigration levels, right? And as you can see, there's a big flip that happened in the mid-90s, right? You're asked the question, immigration levels are too high. The green line is agree, right? So 65% of people disagree that immigration levels are too high. So that sort of indicates that we're not going to suddenly turn around and start purging them, which is good. I'm a Gen Z and the youth are just a bunch of whoppies. Words are violence, crowd-type kids who know nothing of how the world actually runs. Yeah. All my friends talk about cryptos, investing, yet don't know how economics of energy works. Yeah. Humanity, not Hannity. That's funny. Well, and like, cryptocurrencies are a disaster, right? Like, there literally is no way that we can have a sustainable future with cryptocurrencies in them. Like, full scale, full stop, cannot be real. Like, cannot be real. That we really are going to choose between, like, these non-fungible tokens, like little fucking dumb Pokemon cards, and human life. Ethereum, or is that what it is? Ethereum? I'm going to call it Ethereum. It alone requires as much energy as the country of Iceland. Bitcoin requires as much energy as the country of Argentina. Right? So like, and that's only going to grow exponentially. So this idea that we can have cryptocurrencies in a sustainable future is a total fucking joke. And the people who are talking that way are fucking losers. Like, completely clueless. Or just psychopaths who don't give a fuck. Right? Which is completely possible. Yeah, why Ontario and all Canadians need a wealth tax? Because billionaires are dangerous. Any conclude? I'm just going to read the concluding thing. It's time for a wealth tax instituted by all levels of government, including the province of Ontario. And with a provincial election on the horizon, it's time to turn up the volume on this idea. It's achievable, it's just, it's popular, and will play an important role in ensuring the best times for every Ontarian. Yeah, they're always framing it within the context of like, but we can like do good things for people with it, instead of like literally saying that billionaires are the reason why everything is shitty. We've restructured our society to jerk off like 20 people. No. It's weird to have this impending sense that humanity is winding down, and yet production of pointless garbage keeps ramping up all around us. Yeah. Isn't that the thing? Like, that's the reason why I think full-scale revolt is necessary. Like, this is a peasant's revolt. Like, a full-scale revolt is absolutely necessary, because we completely do not acknowledge that we are the struggle that we are in, right? We don't acknowledge the reality of the situation completely. Like, it's like we're all in a boat that's sinking, right? And some of us are actually bailing the water out of the boat, but then other people are doing things to pour more water into the boat so that they can like watch how it splashes. Isn't that fun? Ha ha ha. And we're all like, shut the fuck up, like bail. And they're just not. So like, yeah, it's a misnomer. It isn't a currency, but an invisible, non-existent asset, a stock. Yeah, dude. No, and that's what's absurd about these things. Like, fucking get rid of them. I can't even believe that they exist at all. Like, it's insulting. right? It's insulting. It's become completely insulting. I think there's going to be a pull on consciousness. The majority of human beings will be brain-dead zombies, while a select few people will actually achieve clairvoyance with their consciousnesses. I mean, that's always how it's been. That's how humanity rolls. And then after the disaster happens, people will take the works of the people who were right and put them in compilations and compile them. Like, that's literally what happens in, like, the Bible, right? Here's the Bible, right? There's a section of the Bible called the Prophets, right? And if you actually read this thing, and I highly advise everybody do, but there's like Ezra, Nehemiah, Job. Job's different, but you've got, who are the prophets? Come on. Hosea, Zechariah, Malachi, right? Tobit. You've got the prophets. And what these guys were is they were literally the dudes who would walk into town and be like, this is going to happen if we don't stop doing this. And then it happened anyway. And they were like, well, we didn't stop doing that. And then they took their writing and their work and they went, okay, like, he was right. Boom. We should pay attention to that. People like Chris Hedges. Like, Chris Hedges is a prophet. Like, he's absolutely been right every step of the way, and he's going to be right as we continue forward. Like, the only thing that's going to prevent any of this is full-scale revolt. Like, full-scale, total, full stop. Like, and like, literally we are going to have to create legislation that says people can't have more than, like, $5 million. Like, that's it. And I don't mean, like, $5 million, like, in the bank and then assets. I mean, literally $5 million completely. Full stop. You don't get anything more than $5 million. And, like, people are going to whine and bitch and complain because they're children. And a bunch of people are going to have to sell their shit. And I'm completely fine with that. Like, but the reality is that the thing that's causing the problem is billionaires. Like, they're the number one problem. Without a doubt. Like, without any doubt whatsoever. I think if you think anything else, you're just not paying attention at all. You're just a sleepy bear jerking Elon Musk off. COVID numbers back up. We'll go higher during winter. Will UBI finally become reality? I think they're just going to stand back and watch people die, Tinker. Like, that's what they're doing in the States. I don't see why it'll be any different here in Canada. Like, and the people who are, like, being inflicted with this, they're not surrounding the halls of power. They're not going and, like, actually doing anything about this, right? They're like clapping in the streets for, like, worthless infrastructure bills and bullshit. Surround the halls of power. Like, that's it. Besides, the biggest X factor would be UFOs. What are they actually doing? Depending on what you think about it. I mean, UFOs are fun to talk about, but I don't think we should plan domestic policy based on their existence. I just don't see a reason why the UFOs would be involved with us, you know? Like, unless we are doing something that is an existential threat to them, which could be something like the Long Hadron Collider. Like, I think that the Long Hadron, that collider is the stupidest fucking thing ever. Let's just smash particles and see what happens. What the fuck are you talking about? Let's just build a machine that's so powerful that it can render the universe and rend the universe apart and just see what happens. What the fuck are you talking about? Like, I can't believe that thing got built. I can't believe that we're so irresponsible and so negligent and so stupid that we just built a particle destroyer because we could. No. What are you talking about? Like, what are you fucking talking about, dude? We don't know what this stuff is. Like, you just want to fucking start hammering on it? Yikes. The head of 15 spy agencies in the USA said extraterrestrials when referring to those videos. So, but this is what I mean. Like, I bet you these aliens are looking at us with that fucking collider and are just like, yeah, maybe we should talk to these guys. Like, that could, like, what if we tear a hole open in the universe? Like, we don't know what we're doing. We're just monkeys with guns. That's all we are. Yeah, Puddin' Brain Biden couldn't even get people 2,000. Don't expect UBI, exactly. Great discourse as usual. Thanks, John. Thanks, Harry. I appreciate that. I really do. Yeah, aliens will not save us. Only the awakened masses taking action will. Absolutely. Too late. Planning all policy going forward around the wild hope that aliens will save us from ourselves. Yeah, dude. If the aliens showed up, I'd be like, oh, thank God. Let's go. At what point will revolt that will be called terrorism by governments eventually be known as freedom fighters? The media is going to call us terrorists. Of course they will. Of course they will. But they've lost credibility completely. Like, nobody takes these guys credibly. Like, and if it's domestic, like, while we enter a more violent domestic police state, exactly, right? And but the strategy is to surround the halls of power and begin redrawing the Constitution. That's what it is. That, like, we should actually begin redrawing our Constitution now, right? Like, we should literally, as we surround the halls of power, be going there with a Constitution in hand. And if you ask me, like, the Charter of Rights and Freedoms is a fine document, but it should include food and shelter as a guaranteed basic right. I was there at CERN 2018. It's a pretty big loop. You know what I never ever got? How the ability to work for someone is defended as freedom. Yeah. In America, it's always just about job numbers, not job quality. I just like, yeah. Isn't that interesting, right? Isn't that interesting? That, like, and if you start talking any other game, you're just called lazy, right? And they diminish what you're saying. And, like, wait a minute. Why is working for capitalists considered freedom? Like, seems like it's freedom for them. Like the way ancient Athens considered itself democratic, right? They're like, yeah, it was democratic if you were a white landowner, right? If you weren't, a white landowning male at that. If you weren't a white landowning male, you weren't doing democracy. There was no democracy for you, right? So it's very much the same way how we talk about freedom here. Yeah, freedom. Freedom to work for the capitalist death cult. Freedom for the capitalist death cult to exploit people. Those are the freedoms that Americans treasure and cherish. All right, guys. This is the end of this one. Thank you so much for being here, guys. I appreciate it all the time. Thank you for sharing. Major, thank you for sharing very, very personal stories. Oh, man, I had a good cry at the beginning of this one, man. Wow. I didn't expect it. Always a pleasure. You guys are a treasure, and I hope you're fighting the good fight. I hope you're organizing. I hope you're getting involved in political movements. I hope you're starting political movements. I hope you're printing flyers. I hope you're making flyers. I hope you're talking to the people around you. And tell more people about me. Like, share, subscribe, give me some money, all that kind of stuff. Most importantly, guys, always remember, you are a quantum being standing around in quantum energy. These billionaires are spending hundreds of billions of dollars so that you won't realize it. Don't let them. Good luck. We're going to need it.